Even though the divine power crumbled within the void, the same did not happen to the attack from divine Emperor Futian. His whole person glowed, and he was shrouded in silver divine light. He no longer had a material body, but a body of the great path. His body grew large, as did his palm. His fingers turned into an imperial arm that pierced the domain of void, annihilating and recreating things. There was nothing it could not destroy, and it was attempting to prove it now. Although Dong Huang the Great was powerful to the point that he was even capable of forming the domain of void around himself, he did not believe that Dong Huang the Great could maintain his revelation divine power at its supreme state forever. If his revelation divine power had turned into the void, Dong Huang the Great would have ruled over the world long ago already. Dong Huang the Great blasted the air with his left hand, and the hit landed directly onto divine Emperor Futian's body. With a loud sound, the supreme state of the divine power vanished, and both their bodies were thrown back at the same time. They withdrew, widening the distance between themselves. Dong Huang the Great's terrifying fist attack did not result in any lasting damage toward divine Emperor Futian. It was as if he had put on the armor of Tianxin, making his physical body unsurpassable and unbreakable. Bang! A loud sound broke out, and divine Emperor Futian stepped forward. All at once, numerous rays of divine light enveloped the boundless area. It was as if the entirety of the vast heavenly imperial city was bound within the perimeters of the divine domain. The cultivators of the heavenly imperial city felt as if the world around had turned silver. It was a cold and hard world, and they realized that they were no longer able to move their bodies. They were all under the control of the divine power enveloping the area and were absolutely trapped. Their bodies were wrapped in silver divine light. It seemed like they had also been transformed into the same silver body as divine Emperor Futian. The difference was that this body was a part of divine Emperor Futian's divine power, so he had full control over it, but when it came to them, they were captives. It seemed as if the whole world had come to a standstill and that the heavenly imperial city had become a world of ice, formed from numerous statues. Dong Huang the Great frowned and increased the intensity of his revelation divine power to its maximum level. It enveloped the entire heavenly imperial city, reducing the strength of divine Emperor Futian's divine power. He looked toward divine Emperor Futian and stated, "You do realize you are an ancient divine emperor, don't you? This fight is between us. There is no reason to implicate innocent people. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. Calm." As he finished speaking, he rose toward the boundless upper regions of the sky. Divine Emperor Futian turned into a beam of silver light and followed him. The two were beams of light, and they moved vertically upward, providing respite to the cultivators in the heavenly imperial city. They looked at the boundless upper sky and were vaguely able to make out the two legendary figures standing facing each other. Their divine domains of the great path were restraining each other and were terrifying divine powers capable of holding the other captive. Subsequently, they saw the sky light up with a dazzling divine glow. It looked as if it was a light full of murderous intent. Both emperors rushed at each other, resulting in an earth-shattering effect that left even the heavenly imperial city shaking, though it was separated by the boundless space. In the 99 heavens, Yi Futian, who had been cultivating behind closed doors, felt as if he had been shocked wide awake. He raised his eyebrows like he had sensed something. Shortly after, the scene of a horrendous battle appeared in his mind's eye. It was that between divine Emperor Futian and Dong Huang the Great. His eyes sprung wide open. A cold divine light filled his black jet pupils. It was unbelievable that a strange contender had come to take them on again, and this one was powerful enough to go head-to-head with Father. Just who was he? Yi Futian flitted down to the lower sky region. Immediately, many cultivators gathered around to see him. This was the first time Yi Futian had woken up ever since he started meditating on the Great Path. How much progress had he made? Just going by his appearance, they could not tell, but they somehow knew in their hearts that Yi Futian had surely gotten stronger. Yi Futian looked around at the people surrounding him. His micro-heavenly world was currently able to effect a greater change on the flow of time and was getting better and better, progressing toward becoming a macro-heavenly path. If he let the people around him cultivate inside his micro-heavenly path world, there would be more time to be made use of. Young Master. Lady Qin came up next to him. Even when Yi Futian had inherited the throne, she was still used to addressing him as Young Master. In her eyes, not only was Yi Futian their hope, but he was even more so the offspring of Her Highness. He was someone special to her. He was the continuation of Her Highness's life, so she naturally regarded him as a close junior of hers. "What is it, Lady Qin? Is something the matter?" Yi Futian asked. The human ancestor was a great emperor during the ancient times. After he fortuitously survived, he has been on the hunt for the other great emperors after the Great Tribulation in a desire to bring them back. Now, it seems like he has found a way to do so. Previously, the 9 great emperors arrived. The one battling with His Highness now is also a divine emperor from ancient times, Lady Qin explained. Divine emperor? Yi Futian furrowed his brows, feeling a little anxious. Even though he had uttered some rather unkind words before toward Donghuang the Great, he nevertheless still greatly respected this father of his. Donghuang the Great had given a lot, and from his perspective he had already done the best he could have. Yes, he was an extraordinary great emperor and had such outstanding achievements to his name that he could receive the title of Divine Emperor. Divine Emperor Pujuen was one of them. But you don't have to worry. Even though His Highness is from this age and is the youngest out of the 6 great emperors, Buddha has said that he has the strongest enlightenment affinity out of them all. Even a divine emperor from the ancient times is no threat to His Highness. Lady Qin seemed to be highly confident in Donghuang the Great's ability. The only one who could really constitute a threat to His Highness would probably be the human ancestor, and only him. Lady Qin continued. He was able to easily send a divine emperor and 8 great emperors out to battle. What a lineup! Just how many ancient characters has the human ancestor been able to get under his control all these years? Yi Futian nodded. During the battle of the 6 great emperors in a 4 versus 2 situation, his father could still get through without a scratch. He was highly skilled. Actually, if not for the lack of time, no matter your mother or His Highness, they were capable of proving the path and reigning supreme. But the human ancestor did not allow them the opportunity, and so you were needed to carve out a different path. I understand. Yi Futian nodded. Let's go out and take a look. In a flash, they disappeared from where they were standing. The next moment, Yi Futian's figure appeared in the upper sky region of the heavenly imperial city. The cultivators there were extremely overwhelmed upon seeing Yi Futian appear, as this was the first time he had made an appearance in the outer parts of society since becoming the heavenly emperor. This silver-haired young man was the true heir of the heaven realm and the present heavenly emperor as the descendant of Donghuang the Great and the sovereign princess. He was also the king of the original realm previously, and the successor of Great Emperor Ziwei and Xinjia the Great Emperor. After Yi Futian inherited the throne, many started digging into his background. His experiences of making it to the top step by step from the bottom had made him a legend. Who knew when was the time when he would reach the summit and stand at the top of the world, creating his own legendary story? Would the cultivators of the heaven realm have the chance to witness that? Yi Futian raised his head to look at the battle above the skies. In the high regions of the boundless sky, 2 superbly powerful characters were having a whirlwind of a battle. Currently, on the battlefield, the divine domains released by both of them were intersecting with each other. The dazzling silver world overlapped with the revelation world, its many silver pillars of light keeping the area in captivity. The whole world was flooded in an icy cold silver color. Divine Emperor Pujuan's physical body transformed into a beam of silver light and traversed within the silver-colored world. He repeatedly attacked Dong Huang the Great from a close range, causing Dong Huang the Great to be forced out again and again. As someone who could be compared with Xinjia, the great emperor, his physical prowess was next to none. Dong Huang the Great's attacking power was not weak, but he could not hurt Xinjia, the great emperor's body of the path. A beam of silver light struck across the sky, and divine Emperor Pujuan's body transformed into an enormous silver spear using the powers of the path. It directly pierced the heavens and the earth, leaving a ray of silver light trailing in its wake in the skies as it charged at Dong Huang the Great. Dong Huang the Great lifted and stretched out his hand. The surrounding defense, made of the revelation, divine power, once again got penetrated. This time it was by the silver divine spear. The revelation divine sword clashed with it, but was smashed to pieces. The silver divine spear was like a supreme treasure, and its assault was continuous. Dong Huang the Great released the revelation divine power within him to its maximum capacity. It enveloped the spear so that it was blocked again when it attacked. However, the silver spear started to vibrate violently, and its divine glow grew brighter and brighter. The remarkable silver divine light held Dong Huang the Great's body captive, causing it also to turn silver and become like a statue. Break. / Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. Come, a command was cried out, and divine Emperor Pujuan's silver spear pierced straight into Dong Huang the Great's body. The silver light was brightest at that moment, and Dong Huang the Great's body was a cold and stiff silver ice statue. Yi Futian, who was at the lower sky region, felt his heart skip a beat when he witnessed this scene. He immediately hovered up, wanting to enter the battlefield, but was stopped by Lady Qin. He looked at Lady Qin, puzzled. Lady Qin nodded at him and said, "The opponent's divine power can break practically anything and, of course, supremely powerful. But in this ultimate matchup of divine powers, revelation divine power will be the victor. This has been destined from the start." Yi Futian was surprised by Lady Qin's extraordinary confidence in his father. However, she must have a reason for saying that. He continued watching the skies above with his gaze piercing through the boundless space to the scene of battle. Presently, Dong Huang the Great was just a statue and did not seem to have any advantage. The greatest great emperor of the present age is nothing much after all. Divine Emperor Pujuan's figure appeared, and he was carrying the spear in his hands. His voice betrayed the emotions of someone who had seen much throughout the years. The current world, somehow, left him feeling disappointed. Yet, just as he finished speaking, he frowned and blasted out his divine power, but it did not manage to smash the statue that was Dong Huang the Great into pieces. On the contrary, he could sense the divine power within Dong Huang the Great's body exploding fiercely. It was as if Dong Huang the Great's body was hollow, and in there his divine power could not survive. Divine Emperor Pujuan heard a sigh just then, as if someone was sighing for him. Surprisingly, the sigh came in the direction of the statue that Dong Huang the Great had turned into. Divine Emperor Pujuan felt the color drain from his face and was about to retreat when he realized that he had been surrounded by divine power already. The moment he thrust the spear into Dong Huang the Great's body, all had been predestined. Bang! Divine Emperor Pujuan's body was suddenly blown to pieces. A piece of his physical body in the middle turned into nothingness and was destroyed. He lowered his head to take a look and saw that his body had broken apart. A horrifying divine power seeped frantically into his body, and divine Emperor Pujuan started to tremble. At the same time, the statue turned back into the form of Dong Huang the Great, as if he had not suffered any harm at all. Fear appeared in divine Emperor Pujuan's eyes. Were the current 6 great emperors that strong? Divine Emperor Pujuan, your attacking prowess is next to none, but your enlightenment needs work. You've lost, Dong Huang the Great remarked to him. Divine light encircled him, and he looked remarkably noble. Although he was a junior to Divine Emperor Pajuan, his magnanimity made it seem like he was the one who should command respect instead. Divine Emperor Pajuan looked at Dong Huang the Great. Dong Huang the Great naturally understood what the look in his eyes meant. Being a divine emperor, Divine Emperor Pajuan had every reason to be proud, and even at such a time, he would not open his mouth to beg for mercy. His prideful nature just would not allow it. But Dong Huang the Great merely sighed and said, "Although you are my senior, I am unable to let you go. Please forgive me." At that, divine power immediately devoured Divine Emperor Pajuan's body, causing him to slowly turn into nothingness bit by bit and disappear from the world as if he had never existed before. Dong Huang the Great looked at Divine Emperor Pajuan's vanishing form and was filled with emotions. From the beginning, he had made the preparations to finish off Divine Emperor Pajuan. Thus, he had lured him into this trap such that he would have no chance of escape. He and Yi Futian would have to face the human ancestor and his supporters in a fierce battle one day. A divine emperor would have dealt a lot of damage, so he definitely could not have let him go alive. He chose the most suitable solution to keep him here forever. He hovered down, and the cultivators in Heavenly Imperial City were shocked to see Dong Huang the Great return. That day, 9 great emperors had arrived to set up a fight, including a divine emperor from the ancient times, and Dong Huang the Great had finished all of them off, with not even one remaining. 9 great emperors all gone. Seeing the return of Dong Huang the Great surprised Yi Futian also. "Futian!" Dong Huang the Great shouted. "Why are you awake?" "I sensed father's battle taking place and came here to watch," Yi Futian replied. Dong Huang the Great was momentarily stunned by hearing how Yi Futian addressed him, but a gratified smile soon grew on his face. The divine power that father used to kill Divine Emperor Pajuan seems to have overtaken the revelation divine power. Was that the evolution of the revelation divine power? Yi Futian was curious to know. "I'll explain it when we get back." Dong Huang the Great stalled on his reply, and the few of them returned to the 99 heavens. "In the past, when I was cultivating and meditating with your mother, we were looking for a way to get to the end of the cultivation journey. The revelation divine power is a divine power that has the capability of helping us to reach that end. So your mother did some tests on me in the hope that I could better draw out the mysteries regarding the evolution of the revelation divine power. And we did, in fact, succeed. The end of revelation divine power is nothingness, but up until now, I have not really mastered nothingness. If not, things won't be the way they are now." Yi Futian slightly nodded upon hearing Dong Huang the Great's explanation. It seemed that it was very much thanks to his mother that his father could be on the same level as Devil Emperor and the others. Although the revelation divine power can point the way to the end of cultivation, it is not the right way. Therefore, you need not go down this way. Just fully incorporate all that your mother has left for you, and you will reach the end of the cultivation journey earlier than I. Dong Huang the Great continued with his explanation. This was what they all hoped for. On the God's Ruins continent, where Futian the Great had been before, great emperors continually land in the original realm after coming through the space, teleportation, grand matrix. All great emperors had sent a representative before them to keep an eye on the area. The 7 great emperors that Yi Futian had killed with one spear had also all come from there. And even now, the area would still be visited occasionally by various great emperors. At present, in the lower sky regions of the area, there was a mountain peak. At the top of the mountain peak was a figure quietly sitting cross-legged. He was tall and had a remarkable disposition. Just by sitting there, he did not seem like he belonged in the world. That figure was Ji Wudao. Ever since the battle he had lost to Yi Futian, Ji Wudao seemed to have gone into anonymity and never made another appearance. He knew that after he had been defeated, Yi Futian would receive his inheritance and fully take over. When that happened, he would have no hope of fighting with Yi Futian anymore, unless he received more than Yi Futian. Ji Wudao quietly sat there, as if he had been cut off from the world and no longer cared about the things in it. Even if war were to break out in the heaven realm, he would be the last to know and had no interest in finding out either. Time passed day by day. In the present day, a strange phenomenon was seen in the heavens. After that, a terrifying aura descended, and the teleportation matrix was torn apart as a figure appeared in the high sky region. He stood there, overbearing as could be. The figure looked all around him, while the Emperor's might swept across him, and divine consciousness covered the boundless area. Following that, he fixed his gaze on the peak of the mountain where Ji Wudao was. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. Come! In a flash, he headed toward Ji Wudao, and across the boundless space, a divine power descended upon Ji Wudao. Ji Wudao opened his eyes and looked up at the sky. He saw the figure that had just appeared, but his expression remained calm and unperturbed. In the past, an extraordinary cultivator had emerged from here. He was Futian the Great from ancient times, and his abilities were unparalleled. He had previously fought within the 99 heavens and lost when the other party borrowed the power of the heavenly path to defeat him. As if he had sensed something, the great emperor that had appeared suddenly stopped in his tracks and did not continue making his way toward Ji Wudao. Subsequently, he turned around and left as if he knew that Ji Wudao was not one to mess with. However, his wanting to leave did not mean he could leave now at this juncture. A terrifying divine power enveloped the area he was in, and Ji Wudao reached forward with his palm to grab across the distance. The great emperor's expression changed, and his divine power flared up. Then a horrifying black hole appeared and devoured the divine power. The divine power flowed furiously into the black hole, and his body was also no longer under his control. His robe was fluttering frantically in the wind. The black hole grew bigger and bigger and devoured the area he was in. Next, he too was finished and no more to be seen. Almost immediately, the terrifying aura vanished, and everything went back to normal. Ji Wudao shut his eyes and stood there quietly as if nothing had taken place. He calmly continued cultivating. Not long had passed before he opened his eyes again and took a look at the heavens. Then he transported himself toward the higher sky region. Reaching out his palm, he ripped a hole in the teleportation matrix and disappeared into the hole. After his departure, the hole revealed itself, and everything was back to normal as if nothing unusual had happened. From afar, a cultivator who had witnessed all of this felt his heart beating faster. That was Ji Wudao, who had once been thought to be the next heavenly emperor. Where did he go? In the heavenly palace in the 99 heavens, Donghuang the Great had also received the news about what had happened in the God's Ruins continent. He had been chatting with Yi Futian and his godfather Yu Tu and Yi Baichuan. They were all fatherly figures in one way or another to Yi Futian. The news was brought by Donghuang the Great's direct disciple, Diu. Donghuang the Great frowned slightly after hearing the news. Yi Futian, too, was surprised, and he asked, "Father, are those cultivators also ancient emperors? Where did they come from?" He had previously killed 7 great emperors with a spear. The 7 of them seemed to have been gods of judgment, but up till now, Yi Futian still had no idea where they were from. Donghuang the Great's expression turned graven after hearing Yi Futian's question. He answered, "Back then, your mother already had some inkling that these things would happen. We had also discussed this issue and felt that it could be related to the battle of the old heavenly path. The heavenly path is a conscious being, and when one reaches the ultimate cultivation level, they would be able to become the heavenly path, also the god of the heavenly laws and the god of origins." "Of course, you know about this," Donghuang the Great added. "In other words, the universe we are in is vast and without end. It contains numerous worlds and unlimited space. However, it can be created by cultivators who have reached the ultimate cultivation level. We must ask ourselves, how long has civilization existed? Probably hundreds of millions of years. In this long period, how much has happened that we don't know of? During the period before the disintegration of the heavenly path, we called it ancient times. But is there an even earlier period then? Dong Huang the Great asked. Yi Futian looked thoughtful after hearing what Dong Huang the Great said. He thought he understood what Dong Huang the Great had in mind. The Buddha said that there is a world in every flower and knowledge in every leaf. In Buddhism, there are thousands of big worlds and thousands of little worlds. Who wrote these Buddhist classics? Dong Huang the Great's expression also became serious. Is the heavenly path the only one? Is the universe we are in the only one? Dong Huang the Great's contemplations caused the cultivators to fall into silence. The area grew acutely quiet. Were there any other heavenly paths? Were there any other universes? Yi Futian had created a micro-heavenly path within himself. If the micro-heavenly path was completed in the future, many cultivators could go in there to train. Would they in the myriads of worlds in there know that there was another world outside? This was also part of the reason your mother wanted to recreate the heavenly path back then. If other universes and worlds existed, the recreated heavenly path should be the guardian. Thus, she aimed to reach the ultimate cultivation level and also hoped the people of the world would desire to reach a higher plane. Dong Huang the Great drawled on slowly. And now there are some things that are worth exploring further. But for now, you do not need to bother about these things. I'll find the answer, and when I find it, I'll let you know. For you, your present goal is still cultivation. No matter what we face in the future, we are still reliant on great power. Yi Futian nodded. Dong Huang the Great's remarks were thought-provoking. If the 7 great emperors he had killed were not from ancient times, were they cultivators from other worlds? Was it because they could find the path to this universe after the disintegration of the heavenly path? No one knew. Where to did Ji Wudao go after tearing a hole in the teleportation matrix? More and more cultivators arrived at the 99 heavens. From Yi Imperial Palace in the God's Ruins continent, from Ziwei Imperial Palace in Ziwei Segmentum, and Heavenly Mandate Academy, many who trusted in Yi Futian were willing to follow him to the heaven realm to cultivate and become part of the great army of cultivators in the 99 heavens. At present, the entire 99 heavens were enveloped by a peculiar aura. The power of the heavenly path was already imbued within the 99 heavens, and the place was isolated from the rest of the outside world, becoming a micro-world on its own. In fact, all the cultivators in the 99 heavens were able to sense the dense aura of the great path. They were able to feel the existence of the path from this micro-world, making it easier for them to meditate and improve at an extremely fast pace. In the 81 heavens, a group of people was gathered in front of the Fey Palace to discuss the way of cultivation. 10 years metamorphosis, and Senior is reaching the demigod level. Congrats! Someone said, and the person beside him laughed while shaking his head. I can't claim the credit for this. It's all thanks to this piece of land. I vaguely feel that the environment of the 99 heavens micro-world that we are part of now is unlike ancient times. It might exceed it. Perhaps it's because our palace lord had altered the cultivation environment of the heavenly path. Do you guys feel the same way? Yes, we do. This micro-world originated from the power of the heavenly path, which is the mother of our palace lord. Now that our palace lord has integrated them and altered the cultivation environment here, this micro-world might possibly be the best cultivation ground in the world. Those who left the 99 heavens are probably regretting it now. The person beside nodded. You guys are still calling him palace lord? Someone else asked laughingly, and the 2 who had been speaking realized that they had made a mistake. They replied with good humor, We've gotten too used to it already. But now that the palace lord has become the heavenly emperor, we should change how we address him. I, on the other hand, don't feel like it really matters. Considering the magnanimity of our palace lord, I doubt he cares what we call him. But some felt that calling him palace lord was also a form of respect. "Brothers!" someone shouted and came over at that moment. The group of people turned around to see a middle-aged man with a purple robe and an exceptional demeanor. He could not help but smile. "Younger brother Joie, you are finally here. When I was cultivating at the gods' ruins continent, I encountered a relic and was not able to make it in time. Afterward, I found out about all that happened and rushed over here. Luckily, it didn't take too long," the middle-aged man explained. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Didn't take too long? Someone laughed. 10 years is not long? In that period, has older brother Wang reached demigod level already? 10 years. The middle-aged man was momentarily taken aback. "What do you mean? Is this a joke? Don't tell me you have gone crazy after training outside. Younger brother Joie?" The group stared at the middle-aged man. "That's right. It's been 10 years since we started cultivating here," another person piped up. "Impossible," the person called Joy adamantly stated. "Merely a few months have passed since our palace lord became the heavenly emperor. I immediately rushed here after hearing the news, and I took only 10 or so days. How could it be that 10 years have passed already?" The people sensed something amiss upon hearing this. They looked at one another in confusion and, after a round of discussion, realized that he was not lying. Currently, the world is in chaos. How could it be that 10 years would pass so peacefully in the heaven realm without any trouble? You will understand once you think about it, the person whose surname was Joie continued. It was a great shock to everyone there. How could cultivators like them calculate time incorrectly? And it could not have been a mass hallucination or misunderstanding either. "If both sides are true, there can be only 2 explanations," somebody ventured. "Which are?" "The first is that we are in an illusionary fantasy world," that person answered. At once, they all released the essence of the great path, and divine light started flowing around them. It did not seem like an illusion. The second explanation is that the nature of time in this micro-world has changed. As he said this, his heart skipped a beat, as did the hearts of the others. When we were first cultivating in the Imperial Palace, a time magical item had appeared before. So, the second explanation should be right. They had already established quickly that the first was just not possible. Every person took a deep breath and looked up at the sky as they reeled from the shock. The 99 heavens had been transformed into a micro-world of its own, and the nature of time in this micro-world has been changed too. Who knows, perhaps the laws have been changed as well, making it so that there is no longer a need to rely on the magical item. Our palace lord can directly make alterations to the natural laws of this micro-world. They fell silent. Was their palace lord already able to perform at such a high level in the integration of the heavenly path? From their conversation just now, it could be seen that the flow of time within this micro-world was at least tens of times faster than the world outside. I previously heard of the phrase, "A day in heaven equals a year on earth." I never thought that one day I would be able to experience such a remarkable phenomenon for myself. Even though it might not be that extraordinary, it still boggles my mind. This means that in the future, our cultivation duration will be tens of times longer than that of the outside world. 1 year of cultivation would be equivalent to tens of years of cultivation for us in the 99 heavens. If 10 years had passed in the outside world, that meant that hundreds of years would have passed here. How terrifying was that? 10 years was not a long time. But hundreds of years would mean a stark advancement in the prowess of the heaven realm. Meanwhile, in the devil abyss of the devil world, Yu Shang was cultivating. The devil emperor was also there. Yu Shang looked at the figure in front of him. He was tall and burly. He seemed to be one with the devil abyss, using his physical flesh to support the whole abyss. Gazing at the scene in front of him, Yu Shang's eyes turned red, and his body underwent multiple tribulations from the devil abyss. This is the fate of us all from the devil world. A voice came traveling from the devil emperor's mouth, reverberating within the devil abyss. Every devil emperor has to go through the pain of the devil abyss. If not, the power of the devil abyss will terrorize the devil world and destroy everything. The cultivators in the devil world are mostly unable to withstand the tribulation of the devil abyss. Why not let it be? Yu Sheng asked while looking at the devil emperor. That tall and burly figure was currently shirtless, and his whole body was blood red. After the disintegration of the heavenly path, the devil lord was suppressed, and no one else was able to fully control the power in the devil abyss after that. The devil abyss was formed simultaneously at the same time as the heavenly path, and legend has it that if the tribulation of the devil abyss were allowed to spill out completely, a catastrophe would befall the entire world. The devil lord had once used the power of the devil abyss in battle with the heavenly path in an attempt to destroy it. Now, it is the responsibility of the devil emperor to suppress the devil abyss. If we let this happen, the devil world would be the first to be destroyed, and the other great emperors would soon think of ways to seal the devil abyss inside the devil world. Our homeland would forever be wiped out, the devil emperor explained. There's no one else other than the devil lord who can control the devil abyss's power. Back then, I wanted to work hard with the devil lord, but he ended up betraying the devil world. Later, you came back to the devil world and inherited the will of the devil lord. And now, you are the only promising remnant left in the devil world. At present, the world is undergoing great changes, and I have a hunch that there will be a huge calamity. I might not be able to make it through the calamity. At that time, you will become the devil emperor, and I hope that you will not let me down. While the devil emperor was talking to Yu Sheng, in the pitch-black darkness of the devil imperial palace, an old man was sitting cross-legged. He looked somewhat fatigued. Just then, a commotion was heard outside the devil imperial palace. The old man opened his eyes, and his gaze seemed a little unfocused, but it lasted for only a short while. When he turned his gaze, his eyes were unexpectedly authoritative. Whoosh! An extremely domineering strong wind gushed out, and the doors to the devil imperial palace were blown open. A figure appeared outside. The figure stood outside, with his hands behind his back. On seeing the figure, the old man stood up, and his expression darkened. He transformed into the unsurpassable devil emperor and stepped out of the devil imperial palace. Stopping in front of the figure, he gave the figure a hard stare. You actually have the audacity to return? The devil emperor glared at the figure, who shared certain similarities in appearance to him. It was his younger brother, Yu Tuesday. I came back for the sake of the devil world, Yu Tu replied. For the devil world. The devil emperor's eyes were cold. A monstrous pressure swept through the area, making the vast devil imperial palace cultivators tremble in fear. They all looked up in one accord at the deep places in the clouds and wondered who had angered the devil emperor. For the devil world, you betrayed us and left. You went to the divine prefecture and followed the orders of Dong Huang and Emperor Yiqing. Don't forget that you are the younger brother of the devil emperor. The devil emperor's tone was cold and biting. It seemed like he had hidden his anger for hundreds of years. Even if you don't believe me, I did it for the inhabitants of the devil world. My conscience is clear. Yu Tu's voice was sincere and calm. There was no trace of emotional turbulence. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. The devil emperor sneered. His voice dripped with sarcasm as he said, the slaughterer of the devil world who was so bloodthirsty he carried out a massacre during the war of the devil world. When did he become capable of taking pity on the masses? People inevitably change, Yu Tu answered back. I'll believe it if it was another person who said this. But you? I don't believe a single word. The devil emperor was condescending in his reply. In this world, there is no one who knows you better than me. You are prideful and hate to be like everybody else, but you are also self-deprecating. We were born imprisoned, and us brothers were determined to break out of the jail cage and climb to the top of the devil world. Back then, you gave up the chance of becoming emperor to me. Although you did it completely willingly, it still somewhat bothered you. You left to carve a path for yourself, desiring to gain enlightenment elsewhere. Yet, it's strange that you would be content just being a servant with your personality. I'm really curious as to what exactly happened back then. At the Devil Emperor's words, many memories flashed through Yu Tu's mind. Those memories were his most cherished. He looked at the Devil Emperor. He recalled, of course people will change. The reason they don't is that they haven't met someone who can change them. So, it was the sovereign princess who made you want to turn over a new leaf and be willing to be a servant. The Devil Emperor remained indignant. So what if she was the daughter of the Heavenly Emperor? He was the Devil Emperor who ruled over the entire devil world. How could his brother be a servant to another? Memories came flooding back before Yu Tu's eyes. Some people were like a ray of light, utterly dazzling and mesmerizing. They made you feel humbled and small, even becoming aware of the darkness within yourself. In this world, there will always be some people who are different from others, different from everyone else. Yu Tu said softly. How different can they be? The Devil Emperor asked sarcastically. Is there anyone on this earth who is not hungry for power? Who does not wish to reign over life? She isn't an exception. For her to be able to bend Dong Huang, Emperor Yi Qing, and your will to her, it's obvious she used her charm. As for wanting to rebuild the heavenly path and reform the world, that's just her way of covering her true intentions of ruling the world and having control over its laws. All people in this world are the same. You two stared at him. A light of calamity glowed within him, and a vague sense of terror accompanied it. You want to fight? Similarly, a terrifying power flared out from the Devil Emperor's body, and a frightening devil's might enveloped the Devil Imperial Palace. However, Yu Tu's anger quickly subsided, and he regained his calm composure. He looked at the Devil Emperor and stated, "You won't understand." The Devil Emperor grunted. "You came here just to say this. The Heavenly Emperor requested me to bring a gift for Yu Sheng and you." Yu Tu revealed. The Heavenly Emperor. The Devil Emperor's tone was ironic. "I don't need something from someone who would crown himself emperor." Yu Tu waved his hand, and suddenly a floating pagoda appeared within the Devil Imperial Palace. Divine power flowed about above the pagoda. The Devil Emperor took a look and frowned. He could sense the power of time and space within it. This is the Time and Space Pagoda. It can alter the speed of time so that it passes faster than the outside world, resulting in a longer cultivation duration in comparison. Yu Tu explained, and the Devil Emperor's eyes grew wide. Yu Tu then took out an orb. It glowed with divine light and was evidently an item wrapped in divine power. The Buddha of Destiny looked into the future and saw a fate concerning all beings. A huge calamity will befall the world. The most powerful cultivators will also be implicated, including you. The medicine Buddha entreated the Buddhist for the fruit of Bodhi. With this most valuable elixir-making divine item of Buddhism, he worked with the Heavenly Emperor to cultivate the reincarnation elixir. Taking it in your last moments will prevent you from dying and give you a second chance at life. You two held up the elixir to the Devil Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor only made a few pills, and he will not be able to make any more in the future as there are no more elixir-making ingredients. This pill is for you. I myself have none. Saying, Yu Tu stretched his arm forward to hand the pill over to the Devil Emperor. The Devil Emperor stared at the elixir in Yu Tu's palm. The world would meet with a huge calamity, and he would go as well. This he too had foreseen. For this reason, Yi Futian had cultivated reincarnation elixirs, and was gifting one to him. He then looked at the Time and Space Pagoda. His expression grew perplexed. Only just now he had said he did not need it. Should he accept it or not? Dong Huang agreed to this? The Devil Emperor inquired. He was the one who proposed this, Yu Tu remarked. The Devil Emperor's expression became even more perplexed. The world would change soon. The human ancestor and Dong Huang the Great harbored deep hostility between themselves and would meet in battle. Should he accept these gifts from Dong Huang the Great and Yi Futian? What are the terms and conditions? The Devil Emperor probed further. There's none, Yu Tu answered again. Do you want it or not? The Devil Emperor looked closely at Yu Tuesday. He had purposely held it in his hand all this while. Obviously, he had intentions for this. With a grunt, he swiped the sleeve of his robe, and the elixir disappeared. He had taken it. If there's a chance in the future, I will repay him this favor, the Devil Emperor remarked emotionlessly. Yu Tu glanced at him and turned around to leave. He answered, Your obsessions have blinded you. They have never seen the Devil World as their enemy. All these are merely your assumptions. Even if the Devil World army had left, the Devil Abyss is still here. Nothing has changed. 4 things to change. The Devil World also needs a person even greater than the one at the top. These words reverberated in the Devil Emperor's mind, even after Yu Tu had left. He stretched his hand and looked at the elixir in his palm. His feelings were complicated. Was it really all just his obsessions? Not long ago, during the battle of the 6 great emperors, he had attacked the divine prefecture and teamed up with the human ancestor in a bid to kill Dong Huang. They were supposed to be enemies. The current messy situation made it possible to think of ways of achieving what they wanted. Even so, they did not need to gift divine items to their potential enemy. What was in the minds of Dong Huang the Great and his son Yi Futian? Were there really people who were different from everyone else in this world? At the peak of the Dark Court, it was as though the end of the world had arrived. In the heavens above, destructive storms raged unceasingly. They were filled with the will of death and destruction. However, beneath such storms, a silhouette wearing a cold-looking mask sat quietly. The figure was cultivating with her eyes closed. This figure was the Dark Sovereign. As the ruler of the Dark Court and the Dark World, the Dark Sovereign was of the same mind as the Devil Emperor. They both sensed that the world would soon face a huge calamity. This catastrophe would engulf the entire world. The event would be even more terrifying than the one 5 centuries ago. It was most likely difficult for anyone to try to survive on their own. It would be the same for her. Right now, the Dark Sovereign was completely immersed in cultivation and comprehended her way. Disciple! A voice sounded in the Dark Sovereign's mind right then. Immediately, the Dark Sovereign felt herself enter an illusory realm. In this illusory realm, there were destructive storms. The entire world was facing a calamity. She was garbed in a dark robe and wore a cold mask as she stood before the destroyed land. In front of her was the figure of an elder. This figure had the aura of a deity. He appeared gentle and had an indescribable casual air to him. His face was always smiling and radiated benevolence, causing other people to feel very comfortable around him. At a glance, he appeared to be a kind old man. Rumble. A terrifying storm enveloped the heavens and the earth and swept towards the elder. In the heavens above, the light of destruction surged towards him. However, the figure of the elder seemed to be ethereal. He still stood, smiling beneath the storm. He looked towards the Dark Sovereign and said, Disciple, aren't you going to greet your master? / please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Rumble. The light of destruction rained down continuously. The storm in the sky brewed, and a menacing tribulation descended from it. The tribulation intended to consume the world. The elder was destroyed by it the moment he showed up. He appeared again and again, destroyed by the tribulation every single time. Every time he revealed himself, he looked at the Dark Sovereign with a smile. He said, My dear disciple, you have proven your way since we last met. You have not let me down. We have not met for a long time. I wish to see you. Die. The Dark Sovereign narrowed her eyes. Her gaze was filled with endless hatred. Soon the elder disappeared. However, his face lingered in her mind. It was as though his face had been engraved in her consciousness. Countless memories surfaced in her mind. There was an image of a maiden running barefoot under the sun. She looked carefree. Her eyes were clean and sparkling. Not a speck of negativity could be found in her gaze. Her heart was pure, and she lived a quiet life with her parents. Then the elder came into the picture. He appeared so kind and well-intentioned. He taught her how to read and cultivate. Both she and her parents showed great respect for the elder. That was until one day, everything changed. She was tormented by her cruelest memories once again. Blood and gore filled the image in her mind. She had committed the most appalling sins in the world. She couldn't forgive herself, neither would she forgive the elder. The memories which flashed past in her mind caused her heart to ache. The dark sovereign, who had been cultivating at the peak of the dark court, opened her eyes. Tears were flowing from her eyes beneath her mask. However, she was emotionless. Cold, murderous intent burst forth from her, resolute as iron. It was as though no one could shake her resolve. Even the destructive storm in the heavens trembled. She lifted her head slightly and looked up at the storm. Why had he appeared in her dream? "Are you coming back?" said the dark sovereign in a tone as cold as ice. With her level of cultivation, dreams would not come to her. There was definitely something affecting her from the shadows. She could sense that he, who had disappeared for a long time, might be returning. The dark sovereign placed her hand under her mask and took it off. Underneath the mask was an extremely beautiful face. However, the face bore a look as cold as ice. It was also laced with endless hatred. She hated this world. She did not know why he wanted to teach her to cultivate and pass down the power of Azura to her. She also did not understand why he had made her face the darkest side of humanity and thrown her down a living hell. She didn't even know who he was. However, regardless of who he was, she would do whatever it took to make him experience a living hell too. As she stood up, the dark sovereign's figure disappeared without a trace. When she reappeared, she was in a destructive storm. A menacing dark lotus was floating in midair. Yi Qingyao was the only person here. Yi Qingyao seemed to have sensed her arrival. She opened her eyes and looked at Dark Sovereign, greeting, "Master." When she saw the Dark Sovereign's original face, she was not surprised. She was probably the only person among the members of the Dark Court who had seen her master's face. She also knew about the agony that her master had experienced. She had seen the ugliest side of humanity, just like Yi Qingyao had. She understood why her master had chosen her as a successor and why the latter thought highly of her. It was because they were the same. "Qingyao," said the Dark Sovereign as she looked towards her, "you were born into darkness and are a true dark maiden. Yet you have been unable to completely succumb to it because there is still light in your heart. However, that light is but an illusion. Everything is false." Yi Qingyao lowered her head slightly. She naturally knew why she had light in her heart. Her origins were different from the Dark Sovereign. The Dark Sovereign had met a person who brought her from the light into darkness. As for herself, she had met a person who brought her light in the darkness. Their experiences were completely opposite. This world of false kindness has long lost its light. There is only darkness. Everything he does is not for your sake. It is merely your talent that has caught his eye. There are so many unfortunate souls in the world. Why did he not save them? He only saved you because you are different. The Dark Sovereign told Yi Qingyao, "It is the same for me. I have taught you to cultivate to bring you into darkness. I am not trying to save you. He came to the dark world, and you have also made him feel that agony. However, he was not affected by it," Yi Qingyao said somewhat stubbornly. She was naturally referring to Yi Futian. He had previously been to the dark world. The Dark Sovereign continued, "What he experienced here is not his real life, so he naturally is unaffected by it. How could a person with no ambition reach where he is today? He has become the faith of the original realm and the god of the heaven realm. Yi Qingyao did not answer. Right then, the dark sovereign frowned. She put on her mask. Her terrifying aura immediately surged, opening a passageway. She looked towards the passageway and asked, "What is the matter?" "The members of the heaven realm have come to see Yi Qingyao," the person on the other side replied. The dark sovereign revealed a surprised look. Yi Qingyao also walked over. "Let's go." The two of them immediately passed through the passageway and appeared on the other side. They saw the person who had come. It was Yu Tuesday. "What business do you have with us?" asked the Dark Sovereign as she stared at Yu Tuesday. Yu Tu glanced at her and then at Yi Qingyao beside her. He then said, "The Heavenly Emperor has asked me to deliver a gift to you." As he said this, he retrieved a box and passed it to Yi Qingyao. "Farewell," said Yu Tuesday. He left immediately after he handed the item to Yi Qingyao. The item was a treasure of time and space. The 99 heavens of the heaven realm had become a small, independent world. At the peak of the heavenly palace, Yi Futian sat cross-legged as he cultivated with his eyes closed. His figure was bathed in divine halos, and he shone together with the sun and the moon. It was no longer an ordinary body of flesh. His body was Wei. Yi Futian's world of the micro-heavenly path had evolved and reached perfection. It was an independent cosmos that was functioning orderly. It had countless planets and stars with continents of their own. It was a different space. Everything inside was no different from the real world. The only difference was that there were very few people in this universe. Many continents had only one person on them. Each person controlled an entire continent. They were the gods of said continents. For instance, Feng Xiyuan was on a continent right now. His planet was filled with the divine force of space. It was as though the entire continent was formed from it. Feng Xiyuan cultivated here alone and comprehended the law of space. Feng Xiyuan was now cultivating very diligently. He knew his place. The heavens and earth were about to change. In the not-too-distant future, he would be fighting for his master. Now that his master was the current heavenly emperor, as his disciple, he could not bring dishonor to his master's image. The 4 disciples of Yi Futian each controlled a world of their own. Each world had a different divine power, who among them would cultivate the fastest and become the strongest in the future. Feng Xiyuan was clear about one thing. His master had established the heavenly path and was the ruler of this universe. That meant that in the future, they would be gods who ruled over the various laws. The continent he was on was the continent of a god. No matter what, he had to cultivate diligently and become a powerful Tianqian of this future universe. That way, he would not tarnish the reputation of being a direct disciple of the Creator God. It was not just Feng Xiyuan. Gu Donglu, Yi Wuchen, Hua Jieyu, Blind Tai, Lord Chen, Chen Yi, Emperor Shi, Hua Qingqing Yaya, and the others all had their own worlds of divine power. Yi Futian directly filled them with the divine power of law, creating the best cultivation conditions for each of them. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Right then, Xia Qingyuan was also cultivating on a continent on her own. Here, there was a tribulation of life and death and the divine power of swordsmanship. Xia Qingyuan was bathed in this power and cultivated quietly. Their cultivation environments made those who came later, including the many cultivators of the heaven realm, envious. Very few people had the chance to personally receive Yi Futian's divine power of law to aid them in their cultivation. The cultivators of the heavenly imperial palace of the heaven realm knew that the heavenly emperor had established a universe. If they emerged victorious in this final battle and Yi Futian ruled the entire world in the future, his descendants would be gods, just like the 8 legions were beneath the previous heavenly path. An ethereal figure was fading in and out of existence deep within the universe. The space itself seemed ethereal. Yi Futian's figure appeared here. He could sense all the changes in this universe and the cultivation status of everyone. These past few years, he had done many things and improved the abilities of everyone around him. He had given Yu Sheng and Qingyao treasures of time and space. This was also to prepare them for the upcoming battle. This way, they could scramble for even more time. Otherwise, they wouldn't make it in time. Now, the world of the micro-heavenly path was reaching stability. The law of time was also stable. A day in the outside world was equivalent to 81 days here. Hence, they needed to make the most of this time. A year in the outside world was 81 years here. They had 81 years to cultivate and catch up. With his targeted training, this world of the micro-heavenly path would produce another group of great emperors. Right then, Yi Futian, who was cultivating in the heavenly palace, opened his eyes. He looked in front of him. "Father," Yi Futian greeted. Dong Huang the Great approached him, seemingly looking to discuss some matters. Dong Huang the Great's expression was serious as he said to Yi Futian, "The result of the investigation is out. They are not cultivators from this universe. There are quite a number of great emperors in their lineup. All of them are from other universes." "Other universes really do exist," Yi Futian exclaimed. Even though he had vaguely speculated this from his previous conversation with Dong Huang the Great, he was still taken aback by this discovery. They were not the only ones in this cosmos. Dong Huang the Great nodded his head and explained, "According to my intel, the location of our universe was exposed. Previously, when the heavenly path collapsed, most cultivators had perished. A number of them still exist among us in other forms. However, there were also a group of cultivators who left this universe. An example is Futian the Great. He might have escaped to other universes, and now he found his way back to this universe. Some other ancient emperors might gradually make their return here too." Yi Futian mumbled, "If those ancient emperors went to other universes instead of perishing, they're most likely even stronger now." Dong Huang the Great continued, "Currently, we have no means to figure out how powerful the cultivators from other universes are. We don't even know how they cultivate. However, the end goal of our cultivation should all be the same. We can only wait and see now." Yi Futian nodded his head in agreement. The most important thing was to improve their abilities. Instead of panicking, they would cross the bridge when they came to it. "What exactly is the end goal of cultivation?" Yi Futian mumbled. "Is it to rule over the heavenly path? You might need to go seek answers. Currently, you are the person who is closest to the heavenly path," Dong Huang the Great said to Yi Futian. Yi Futian established the micro-heavenly path after merging the heavenly path world she left behind. Therefore, in a sense, Yi Futian was the person closest to it. Yi Futian nodded. He then asked, "Father, how is the situation in the outside world now? Are there any abnormal movements in the human realm?" "Nope." Dong Huang the Great shook his head and said, "All is quiet. Perhaps this is the calm before the storm. Last time, the human ancestor assigned 9 great emperors to attack us. One of them was even a divine great emperor. The human ancestor didn't even bat an eyelid when sacrificing a cultivator at that level. We can imagine the kind of manpower he possesses based on this. After his failure last time, his next attack will most likely be even more astonishing." Dong Huang the Great added, "Of course, it might be that the human ancestor himself is also waiting for something. There might be things that he has yet to accomplish. Otherwise, he would have already attacked." Yi Futian nodded his head. He also agreed with his father's perspective. The human ancestor had extreme power at his fingertips. However, he could not utilize it yet. He was similarly waiting for the right moment. He might have unfinished business. "Father, I wish to venture outside," said Yi Futian. "Where are you planning to go?" Dong Huang the Great asked. "I do not know," replied Yi Futian as he shook his head. "I wish to wander around and maybe visit Spirit Mountain. The Buddhist scriptures are broad and profound. Back in the day, I couldn't understand many manuscripts. I might be able to have a different understanding of them if I try again now." "Go then," said Dong Huang the Great as he nodded his head. "I will look over this place on your behalf." With Yi Futian's current cultivation plane, he did not need to worry about anything. There was probably no one in the world who could kill Yi Futian single-handedly aside from the person who had killed her back then. Yi Futian left the 99 heavens. He had reached a bottleneck in his cultivation. He wanted to figure out what the end goal of cultivation was. After Yi Futian left the heaven realm, he went to the original realm. In the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, he came to the lowest level, the 9 states. He came to an academy and heard the sound of students reciting. He saw youths cultivating. They were studying their cultivation techniques diligently. All of this was truly important. Now that Yi Futian had reached his current cultivation plane, he finally understood that everything was the way. All cultivation techniques eventually led to the same end goal. Since there existed other universes, were the cultivation techniques between these universes the same? In this world, the people here began their cultivation with their life spirits. Possessing a life spirit was the true symbol of talent. It meant that one had the potential to advance their cultivation further. Otherwise, they would only be able to cultivate simple spells and techniques. Did the other universes have different forms of cultivation? For instance, if this world had life spirits, did other universes cultivate fighting spirits and use the world around them as their martial arts spirits? Or might it be that they used the stars and planets as the foundation of their cultivation and forged star spirits? Everything was possible. All paths were connected. The starting point of cultivation was not so important. They might all be heading towards the same end goal. However, what was the end goal? Yi Futian traveled across the continent. As he passed by, he saw smoke coming from a village in the distance. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. He walked up to a cliff and saw the waves of the sea roaring in the wake of the setting sun. The tides ebbed and flowed. The sun and moon rose and set. This was the natural order of things. As for cultivation, once one mastered a natural law of order, they would acquire a way. Now that he had reached this point, he had to go even further and reach even higher peaks. What would the view look like from there? Would he control life, death, and reincarnation? Or would he master the flow of time? Or would he end up like his father, who cultivated revelation divine power? Would the end goal of cultivation be the void? Yi Futian stood there for a long time. Then his body disappeared, and he left the continent instantly. For him, traveling across a vast distance was as simple as shifting his will. After Yi Futian left the original realm, he went to the Western heaven. The concepts of benevolence and life and death similarly existed in the world of Buddhism. Various Buddhas passed down the teachings of Buddhist doctrines on Spirit Mountain, yet they were still incapable of enlightening everyone in the world. While Yi Futian was traversing across the space, he noticed an old friend. He shifted his will and appeared over there. He looked ahead and saw a youth being beaten up by a group of people. Hatred filled the eyes of the youth. His gaze was aggressive and contained murderous intent. A monk approached him. He glared at the monk while emanating a savage aura. However, the monk remained indifferent. He put his palms together, and his expression was solemn. He passed a copy of scripture to the youth. "Are you a Buddha?" asked the youth. The monk shook his head. "Do you want me to lay down my hatred and resolve my grudges towards my enemies?" asked the youth again. He was unperturbed by the appearance of any Buddha. His heart was set on revenge. The monk shook his head again. "What do you wish to achieve?" the youth inquired. The monk replied, "This is a Buddhist scripture. You are free to comprehend anything you want from it. If you desire power, you can get it through this scripture. If you bear grudges towards what happened to you, you can take revenge on your enemies after acquiring power." The youth was stunned. he became less wary of the monk. He looked at the latter with an incredulous look. He commented, "What you said is not the way of the Buddhists." "What is the way of the Buddhists?" the monk probed. The youth replied, "Shouldn't it be lay down the butcher's knife, and we shall ascend to becoming Buddhas?" "If people with great sins are absolved of their crimes once they choose to repent, wouldn't it be unfair to the kind people?" the monk retorted. The youth scratched his head in confusion and replied, "What you said sounds right." The monk smiled and explained, "Actually, the line you heard has been misinterpreted. Laying down the butcher's knife refers to letting go of your insistence, desires, worries, and pain. Becoming Buddhas refers to abiding by the Buddhist laws." "I see." The youth seemed to have calmed down. He actually listened to the monk's explanation attentively. "Then, why did you ask me to seek revenge?" the youth asked. The monk answered, "Buddhists believe in the concept of cause and effect. The cause here is them beating you up. If you succeed in cultivation and seek revenge, that is the effect. However, what you do to them will become another cause for something in the future. You will then reap the effect of that cause." The youth only had a hazy notion of what the monk had said. However, the monk had turned around to leave. He approached Yi Futian, bowed and greeted, "Greetings, benefactor Yi." "Greetings, master," Yi Futian replied while bowing. This monk was Bitter Zen, the caretaker of the Buddha. In the past, Yi Futian came to Spirit Mountain in the Western Heaven and battled with various Buddhas using Buddhist doctrine. He defeated various Buddhas, but in the end he was defeated by Bitter Zen. After that, while Yi Futian was cultivating in the Western Heaven, he had many conversations with Bitter Zen. At that time, even though Bitter Zen only had 1,000 years of cultivation, he had the most vital foundation in Buddhist doctrine. From Yi Futian's point of view, Bitter Zen was the kind of cultivator that would reach the peak of cultivation once he achieved enlightenment. "Benefactor Yi is now the heavenly emperor. What brings you here?" Bitter Zen asked. "You once commented that I am someone who is favored by the Buddha. Hence, I have come to seek Buddhist doctrine," Yi Futian said with a smile. Bitter Zen nodded and said, "I will follow you back to Spirit Mountain." "Sorry for troubling you," Yi Futian said while putting his palms together. Then, they left this place and headed towards Spirit Mountain. Spirit Mountain was the holy land in the world of Buddhism. Everything was peaceful and quiet on the mountain. Regardless of the battles occurring in the outer realms, this place remained a holy spot and was not tainted in any way. After Yi Futian arrived at the mountain, he first visited the various Buddhas. Then he read the Buddhist scriptures in the library. With his current cultivation, he could remember everything he read with a single glance. He scanned each scripture with his divine consciousness, and the knowledge was stored in his brain. He did not need to flip through every single page like he used to do. When he left the library, Bitter Zen was sweeping outside. Seeing that he had emerged, he smiled and asked, "Benefactor Yi, have you managed to comprehend anything?" "Buddhist doctrine is broad and profound. I was merely glancing through. If I want to comprehend anything, I probably need to spend a lot of time immersed in it," replied Yi Futian. "Master Bitter Zen, what is your view on time?" "Time is the past, the present, and the future," answered Bitter Zen. "One cannot be attached to them. All three are unattainable. All dharmas are empty after all." Yi Futian knew that this saying was from Buddhist scripture. It meant that everything was null. What was past was past. The present moment would become the past the instant one tried to grasp it. It was the same for the future. One night's dream can last for centuries. What is time? Bitter Zen continued saying. The saying meant that the dreams of men could last 100 years, or even an entire lifetime. However, in reality, such a dream might only occur over a very short period. "Thoughts," said Yi Futian. "Indeed," replied Bitter Zen as he nodded his head. "Without thoughts, time also ceases to exist. In Buddhism, there is the colorless realm, which functions on the same principle. Back in the day, Dong Huang the Great also comprehended Buddhist doctrine. Merging his divine power, he discovered the revelation divine power. The extreme limits of revelation are the void. The void is the absence of thoughts. Yi Futian nodded. He bowed towards Bitter Zen and said, "Thank you, Master, for your advice. It is easier said than done. Both of us have read Buddhist doctrine, but it is not easy to comprehend them," said Bitter Zen. Yi Futian nodded his head knowingly. If one could comprehend something simply by knowing it, then everyone in the world would reach the end goal of cultivation. After Yi Futian and Bitter Zen had their exchange, the former comprehended and cultivated on Spirit Mountain for a while longer. He also met with other Buddha lords to discuss Buddhist doctrine. Buddhism sought emptiness. Everything was empty. They believed that frustration and suffering did not exist. Time and space also did not exist. Everything was born from thoughts. The goal of cultivating Buddhist doctrine was to sever these thoughts and reach enlightenment. Buddhist doctrine trained the heart. The end goal of its cultivation was to be freed from life, death, and reincarnation, to no longer suffer in the 6 paths of reincarnation and achieve detachment. This was where Buddhist doctrine differed from the cultivations of other worlds. Other cultivators sought the heavenly path and cultivated to be one with the heavens. Their end goal was to one with the heavenly path. However, since the great paths were all connected, then what was beyond the higher planes of cultivation? Yi Futian left Spirit Mountain after cultivating there for several days. He continued to travel the world and went to many places. He returned to the Divine Prefecture and came to the Four-Corner Continent in the Shangqing domain. The current Four-Corner Continent was no longer what it used to be. It was prosperous, especially Four-Corner City, which had multitudes of cultivators. All of this stemmed from Four-Corner Village, which had a master who was a great emperor. Aside from master, Yi Futian also emerged from Four-Corner Village. In a way, Yi Futian was the village's spokesperson in the outside world. Such a place naturally drew countless cultivators over. In the Shangqing domain, the status of Four-Corner Village had long surpassed that of the domain chief's manor. It was designated as a holy land. Right then, Yi Futian appeared outside of Four-Corner Village. He had not been back for a long time. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Now that he had returned, Yi Futian vaguely felt that the village was different. There were no changes to the village. He was the one who had changed. His cultivation plane was far superior to that back in the day. He naturally could sense more things now. He faintly felt that there was a mysterious power in the village. It seemed to be the power of time. "What is going on?" thought Yi Futian as he revealed an incredulous look. This was something he could not detect before. Now he could sense it, but he still could not figure out its secrets. Before he started his journey, when he said that he wanted to travel around, his father Dongwang the Great told him to visit Master in Four-Corner Village when he had the time. Yi Futian himself had also wanted to pay Master a visit. Given that his father had brought it up, he did just that. Yi Futian had always been aware that Master was not an ordinary person. The latter did not concern himself with the affairs of the world and stayed in seclusion in the village. He did not participate in worldly struggles. No one in the outside world knew that Master was a great emperor before Yi Futian did. Master had also never revealed his abilities. Even the villagers did not know his identity. Otherwise, the Muyun family would not have betrayed Four-Corner Village, and Muyunlong would not have dreamed of seizing power from Master. In hindsight, their attempts were laughable. Master would not have paid heed to any of this. However, Yi Futian was somewhat curious. Back when Master taught his father, Donghuang the Great, what sort of person was the former? Until now, he had yet to figure this out. Yi Futian was overwhelmed with thoughts as his mind was filled with doubt. He stepped into the village once again. Upon entering Four Corner Village, Yi Futian sensed that something was different. He could feel the faint presence of the power of space in the village even more clearly. This was something that he was unable to detect in the past. The cultivators in the village had all left together with Yi Futian. Currently, the members left behind in the village were all ordinary folk. However, they still recognized Yi Futian. Many people smiled and greeted him. Yi Futian returned their greetings. Of course, there were many other incredible people in the village. This was especially so in the private school where Master was. Master still taught the children of the village. However, he did not teach them cultivation. The children of the village revealed curious looks when they saw Yi Futian outside the private school. Yi Futian smiled as he watched them. It was as though he was looking at Fong Siyuan, Little Ling, and the others when they were younger. Back then, they were also just children. "Master!" greeted Yi Futian from outside as he bowed slightly. "Come on in," said Master. Yi Futian entered the private school and saw him sitting there. When Yi Futian's gaze landed on Master, he found it hard to stay calm. Many things that he could not see clearly back in the day were visible now. Master waved his hand, and the surrounding space turned exceptionally quiet. Master had an otherworldly temperament as he looked at Yi Futian with a smile. His expression was peaceful. "What's the matter? Are you surprised?" Master asked calmly. "Somewhat," Yi Futian answered while nodding his head. He would never have guessed that Master was not a living being. Master also existed in this world with another form. No wonder Master was restricted in terms of his power and movements. Now Yi Futian finally understood the reason behind it. "Is there any difference?" Master asked Yi Futian. Yi Futian was stunned. He was at a loss for words. Master was right. What difference did it make? Since both living beings and non-living beings existed in this world, did it matter for them to be either one? What was the difference between someone with flesh and someone who did not have any? Their bodies were but insignificant shells for cultivators who reached high levels like Yi Futian. Master said, "You are already the Heavenly Emperor. It would help if you were not so polite. Have a seat." Yi Futian sat cross-legged in front of Master. He said, "I will always be a disciple and a junior in front of you." "It's the thought that counts," Master replied while nodding. "Master, are you a cultivator from ancient times as well?" Yi Futian asked curiously. "I have known you for many years and have always been calling you Master. I still have no idea what your name is." "I am considered a cultivator from ancient times," Master responded. "My Taoist name is Mufeng." Yi Futian made a mental note of Master's name. Then he asked again, "Master, you have cultivated for eons. You are knowledgeable. What's your opinion about the end goal of cultivation?" "The end goal of cultivation," Master mumbled, seemingly pondering about this question. Then he said, "Perhaps the end goal is different for everyone. I also do not know what the true end goal of cultivation is. If someone becomes the heavenly path, could that person be considered to have reached the end goal of cultivation?" Yi Futian further inquired, "If the person merely transforms into the heavenly path, I think it cannot be considered as having attained the end goal," Master answered. "Thank you for the pointers," Yi Futian said. "Your father, Dong Huang, the great, cultivated revelation divine power. The end goal of revelation is the void. Can nothingness be considered an end?" asked Master. "Everything in the world is material. If someone manages to control everything with shape and form in the world, is that the end? The world still has countless spirits and wills formed from energy. If someone were to control all of the energy in the world, would that be the end? No one knows what the end is and whether we can even reach it," lamented Master. "I have also been contemplating this. This world is endlessly vast, and yet there are existences from other universes. Are there people who can traverse the different universes at will? If such people do exist, I wonder whether they can be considered to have reached the end of space. Master continued, there is also time. Have you ever considered that if everything in the world can be controlled through cultivation, is it also the same for time? When people say that the past and future are unattainable, is it just because our cultivation planes are insufficient to achieve it? If we are powerful enough, could time be just a line and we can travel along with it as we please? Yi Futian was somewhat astonished. He had never considered this before. If one could travel along the timeline at will, wouldn't that be the same as controlling the past and the future? If so, what was the end? Yi Futian looked at Master. He faintly sensed that Master might be a cultivator who comprehended the law of time. Even though Master was an ethereal existence, Yi Futian still believed that this did not prevent him from comprehending the path and cultivating. He merely faced some restrictions. Master might have been comprehending the path here, awaiting the day he managed to reach enlightenment. Master, have you reached such a level? Asked Yi Futian. After comprehending the law of time, Yi Futian believed that altering the speed of the flow of time was already a powerful application of said law. From the looks of it now, his understanding was still too shallow and his imagination was not bold enough yet. Just as Master said, if one cultivated and reached such a plane that they could see the timeline, they could see the past and the future. If one could travel along this timeline, they could change the past and the future as they pleased. What level of power would that be? At least for now, Yi Futian could not imagine it. If there is truly a timeline and we can travel to the past and future, is it possible for two versions of myself to exist at the same time? If not, how would the situation be? Mumbled Yi Futian to himself. Could the current him travel to the past? If he did so, would there be two versions of himself? Me. Master appeared calm. He said, would I have merely scratched the tip of the iceberg? Yi Futian nodded slightly and did not inquire further. When Master said the tip of the iceberg, he wondered exactly how large the tip was. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Had Master managed to peer into the secrets of time? However, since Master was a mysterious person, it was futile for Yi Futian to inquire further if he chose not to reveal anything. Many people claim that the world will soon experience a major tribulation. I hope Master can give me some pointers regarding this issue, Yi Futian said. Since what is about to happen is a tribulation, it is inevitable. No one can stay out of it, especially since you're prone to tribulations. You can't run away from it. However, you can change yourself and face it with poise, Master explained. What you have been talking about is all well and good. However, the heavens and the earth are undergoing huge changes now. The ancient emperors have been summoned back. They were supposed to have perished during the collapse of the heavenly path. Their return implies that someone has mastered the power to bring them back. You need to be careful. After the collapse of the heavenly path, there was a world-destroying catastrophe. The more powerful one's cultivation was, the harder it was to escape that calamity. The various gods perished. Some managed to escape this universe. Many great emperors existed in other forms in this world. They were no longer living beings but spirits and wills. However, they were now being summoned back. That meant that the human ancestor might possess an unparalleled power. Hence, Master cautioned him to be wary. Thank you, Master, Yi Futian said while nodding. Go and cultivate. There is not much time left, advised Master. Yi Futian nodded. Master's advice might be a warning as well. From the looks of it, the tribulation was just around the corner. There was not much time left. However, time passed 81 times faster in Yi Futian's world. Therefore, he and his team had a little more time than others to make preparations. Yi Futian hoped that the arrival of the tribulation could be delayed as much as possible. If the tribulation happened 1 year from now, it meant that he had 81 years in his world to cultivate. Aside from him, everyone else in his world of the micro-heavenly path would benefit from this period of preparation too. They would gradually become great emperors. Nevertheless, the arrival of the tribulation would still be determined by the supreme beings, the existences who stood at the peak. Therefore, there was an urgency for Yi Futian to further improve his abilities. Yi Futian bid Master farewell and left Four Corner Village. He then returned to his world in the 99 heavens of the Heaven Realm. After returning to the 99 heavens, Yi Futian went to see Dong Huang the Great. "Futian, how was your trip?" Dong Huang the Great asked. "I went to the lower worlds. I also visited the world of Buddhism and Master," Yi Futian reported. "Father, please invite the members of the Imperial Palace in the Divine Prefecture and the cultivators from the world of Buddhism to cultivate in this small world. Besides that, both parties are welcome to elect some of their members to cultivate inside my world of the micro-heavenly path." On top of improving his abilities, Yi Futian also wished to strengthen the overall ability of his allies. Dong Huang the Great nodded in agreement. "You can focus on cultivating for now. I will take care of the rest." Currently, the Heavenly Palace and Yi Imperial Palace, led by the Heaven Realm, the Imperial Palace in the Divine Prefecture, and the forces in Spirit Mountain were all allies. Considering the current situation, they would naturally unite to form a greater power. They would improve together so that they were better prepared for the upcoming tribulation. No one knew how things would be when the tribulation befell them. Yi Futian had sent some items to the Devil World and the Dark World. He did not expect these two forces to side with him, but he still sent them treasures anyway because he wanted to help Yu Shang and Yi Qingyao with their cultivation. He was confident that, at the very least, Yu Shang and Yi Qingyao would side with him. Even though the Devil Emperor had significant influence over Yu Shang, Yi Futian believed his relationship with the latter was stronger. Regardless of what happened, they could always trust each other. After making all these arrangements, Yi Futian entered the 99 heavens and cultivated in seclusion. He was getting ready for the upcoming tribulation. While Yi Futian and the others were cultivating in the 99 heavens, they did not sever their connections with the outer realms. Moreover, he had sent some treasures of time to the Devil World and the Dark World. Therefore, the news of Yi Futian comprehending the law of time was no longer a secret. Soon, a rumor was widespread. 1. Yi Futian, the current heavenly emperor, had attained perfection in his cultivation. He had proven his way at the imperial realm and had inherited the mantle of the heavenly emperor. He controlled the law of time and could rewrite time itself. This news was undoubtedly shocking to many. How terrifying would a cultivator who controlled the law of time and could change the speed of time be? It meant that he essentially had an infinite amount of time for cultivation. A year of cultivation for the others might mean 100 years of cultivation for him. After catching wind of this news, many cultivators wanted to cultivate in the 99 heavens again. However, the gates of the 99 heavens were already closed. The Heavenly Imperial Palace had stopped recruiting cultivators. The Heaven Realm would focus on increasing the quality instead of quantity of their troops moving forward. This news was bad news for the human realm. If Yi Futian could change time, it meant that the Heaven Realm was growing stronger by the minute. The need to eradicate the Heaven Realm was even more dire now. The upcoming war was inevitable. The 7 realms enjoyed a period of peace. A gigantic storm was brewing. Everyone could sense the undercurrent. They were well aware that once the storm erupted, it would turn the entire world upside down. At the same time, the passageway located in the ruins continent of the original realm was often opened up. More and more cultivators arrived in this world. Perhaps things went just like Yi Futian speculated. The location of their universe had been exposed, so the cultivators from other universes had come seeking opportunities. The 7 great emperors, whom Yi Futian killed before this, might have been the trailblazers for a super force. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain why all 7 of them cultivated the same power. All of them used the power of judgment, As of now, no one could tell how the future would be. The human realm was prosperous. Because of the human ancestor, the human realm had the strongest lineup of cultivators in the 7 realms. The human ancestor was the god during the Age of the Gods. After the collapse of the heavenly path and catastrophe hit the world, he was revered as the progenitor of human beings. The revival of humankind and the creation of the power of divine human were among the list of his feats. He believed a man could defeat a god, and if one were powerful enough, they would become a god themselves. The human ancestor had been ruling the order of the human realm and teaching them the way of cultivation, causing humanity to thrive. The cultivators of the human realm had been revering him as their god. He was the faith of the human realm and was extolled by his people. Yet, rumors had been circulating everywhere lately, saying that the human ancestor was overly ambitious and that he desired to control the entire 7 realms and topple the heavenly path to take its place. Nevertheless, cultivators from different realms had distinct opinions. The human ancestor was the faith of the cultivators of the human realm as they regarded him as their god. If he were to reign over 7 realms and control the order of the world, they would be glad to see it happen. Perhaps that was the right track for them. In fact, their people had been waiting for the day when the human ancestor would rule the world, control the world order, and restore justice for the human realm. The human realm was filled with countless continents. Each of the continents was home to many cultivators of different cultivation levels. It was a big world. At that time, many cultivators from several continents raised their heads after sensing some unusual activity in the sky. The odd feeling of an imminent threat gradually became stronger. Without warning, rays of divine light beamed from the sky. It was dazzling and blinding to the eyes of the onlookers. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. What is going on? No matter where they were looking from at that moment, everyone saw the same scene that played out. After lifting their heads to glance at the sky, they were all taken aback. What was that? Did something happen to the world? Following the glaring light, divine sound could be heard echoing across the vast sky with its solemn resonance. Right then, the world saw the sky split open. From the other side of the opening, silhouettes of divine humans descended from high altitude and came into the sight of the masses. Divine light circulated the figures of the divine humans, making them appear majestic and esteemed. They're gods! The hearts of the multitude of cultivators across the great continents were pounding like mad. They were rooted to the spot by the visual impact. It was not just a god, but multiple gods who showed up simultaneously. Where did these gods even come from? There was an uproar throughout the entire human realm. The people there were taken aback upon seeing the gods that appeared out of nowhere in the sky. Rumor had it that the human ancestor had many great emperor-level Tianshin under his command. Yet they had never expected him to be in charge of an army of the gods, a terrifying sight to behold. Furthermore, these gods seemed to be dwelling at a different altitude. All of a sudden, a humongous countenance appeared in the sky. That face covered every corner of the human realm as if it was the sky, so everyone could see it clearly. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Similar voices reverberated across the entire human realm. The same greeting could be heard from every corner of the boundless continents, causing the atmosphere to tremble. Needless to say, that countenance belonged to the human ancestor. Many cultivators became frenzied after recovering from their shock. Was the human ancestor prepared to rule the world with his army of the gods? The crowd instantly turned zealous and delirious at the sight of it, as if they had been waiting for this day to come. The human realm would rule the world and become the supreme of 7 realms. All these years, I've been ruling the order of the human realm and improving the way of cultivation in this realm. Then, I discovered the predecessor gods from the Battle of the Gods and tried to help them make a comeback to revive the glory days of the Age of the Gods. And now I've made it. His voice traveled across the entire realm. Everyone in the human realm could hear him vividly. These Tiantian were gods from the age of the gods during ancient times. They were revived by the human ancestor and made their resurgence. What a fantastic achievement! A new chapter of history was unfolded through the feet of the human ancestor. It was unprecedented and would never happen again. Such an incredible accomplishment would surely be magnified and extolled for many generations to come as the holiest commemoration. I've seen the apocalypse of the gods and the tribulation of the heavens with these eyes. Since then, I've been working toward restoring the world order and reviving the golden age of ancient times. As of now, some people are actively destroying the world order. First of all, Ji Wudao wished to seize control of the heavens. Then, Dong Huang the Great allied with some other individuals. As it stands, we need to restore peace to the world. Today, I shall exact justice from those who polluted the world with their wickedness. By doing this, we will unite the world and restore order. The voice of the human ancestor resounded through the 9 heavens until every corner of the realm. In his short message, he raised the morale of his people to fight for the cause of the human realm. The people in that realm were burning with zeal as they looked forward to the day it happened, a united great path and the world. I'll let bygones be bygones. Now, those who are willing to create a new order may fight by our side, but those who dare to defy us, we will have no choice but to eliminate them. The human ancestor went on. The human realm has been raising troops and building up forces for years now. I do not wish to start a war, but someone has to rectify the world. Today, I'll lead the troops of the human realm for a crusade. Those who are willing to fight with us should be prepared for war at any time. Yes, Your Highness. Countless cultivators on the vast continents bowed as they received the decree from the human ancestor. They were willing to fight for the order of the human realm. The human ancestor would lead them to conquer and rule over 7 realms. The forces of 7 realms received the news of the commotion of the human realm firsthand. Tumults broke out at the imperial palaces that received the information the earliest. The people in the divine prefecture, Western heaven world of Buddhism, heavenly realm, empty divine realm, the dark world, and the devil world were shocked upon hearing that. Soon, everyone began their preparation work. How would the human ancestor start the war? Would he lead the mighty cultivators of the human realm by himself for his expedition? Besides, the human ancestor had already revived the ancient gods. Who in the world could stand against the human ancestor? On the spirit mountain of Western heaven, world of Buddhism, the pantheon of Buddhas looked dignified as the light of Buddha radiated the entire place. After raising their heads to look in a faraway direction, they put their hands together and recited the Buddhist sutra in unison. While Dark Lord stared at the sky in Dark World, a spine-chilling dark storm blustered violently, as if the tribulation of darkness was about to manifest. Devil Emperor peered at Devil Abyss from Devil World. For some reason, Devil Abyss became unrest as though it was a premonition of imminent disaster. How terrifying was the ancient army of Tiantian! The Devil World, Dark World, Heavenly Realm, Divine Prefecture, and World of Buddhism. Which of them would rise to the top? A worldwide calamity was about to unfold. Yet, no one had expected the human ancestor, the wielder of the sword of justice and believer of humanity's righteousness, to be the war instigator. The Devil Emperor stared at the Devil Abyss in contemplation. Truthfully, they were not fully prepared yet. But who would have thought that the human ancestor would be one step ahead of them in completing his mission and starting a war that would get them involved? How would this worldwide catastrophe turn out to be? This day would become a pivotal moment in history. The people of future generations would remember this day as the prologue to a brand new era. The sky above the entrance area of the dark court trembled all of a sudden. At the same time, rays of crimson divine lights beamed across the firmament. The cultivators of Dark Court immediately looked up into the sky with their hearts pounding like mad. What had just happened? Everyone inside the court felt a suffocating God's might pressurizing them. Boom! The sky was split open after a loud bang was heard. Countless silhouettes of Tianqian showed up in the sky the next moment. Each of them emanated formidable emperors, might from their physical bodies. The governing entity of the dark world, Dark Court, was quivering. Colors drained from the faces of the cultivators in the court after seeing the lineup in the sky. Was that the Tianqian army? Staring at the peak of Dark Court, they saw a destructive dark divine light radiating before a silhouette in a mask appeared, giving off a mysterious vibe. Yet the aura unleashed by that individual was hair-raising. "Is the human ancestor not coming?" she asked indifferently in an aloof tone. Who would have thought that the commander of the Tianqian army was just the direct disciple of the human ancestor, Dihao? Despite that, he was just a successor to human realm in name only. What could he expect to inherit from an ambitious man like the human ancestor? Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. No matter what, Dihao would always be beneath the human ancestor. "I'm here." The human ancestor's voice could be heard saying that. The countenance of the human ancestor was seen in the sky, but it was not his main body. "The Dark Sovereign, you've brought darkness to the world ever since you ruled the Dark World. By right, I should have wiped out the darkness with the sword of justice. But I'm willing to grant you a second chance, provided that you lead the army of the Dark World to strike the alliance of the Heavenly Realm and Divine Prefecture," the human ancestor said with a condescending tone, as if he was the monarch of the world, giving the Dark Sovereign a chance to redeem herself. The Dark Sovereign loathed the owner of the face she was starting at. For the longest time, she had detested people who were holier than thou. She was disgusted by hypocrites, more than she was by petty people. The human ancestor was the quintessence of a hypocrite. He reminded her of a detestable person. It seemed that there were many similarities between the two of them. The human ancestor deemed himself the righteousness of humanity. But was he a righteous person? "What if I say no?" the Dark Sovereign replied. "This world has been filled with darkness. If one were too obstinate to repent from their evil ways, there would be no reason for this realm to exist. The human realm shall lead its army to invade this sinful world and cleanse it from every ounce of darkness. I'm afraid the future will not look bright for the cultivators of Dark Court, including the Dark Sovereign herself," the human ancestor declared with the means to threaten them. If the Dark Sovereign were to refuse, he would lead his army to massacre all of them. "I know what you're worried about, but suppose you're willing to turn over a new leaf, uphold the integrity of humanity, and deploy your troops to the Divine Prefecture and Heavenly Realm. In that case, I will overlook the past and grant you a place in this world," human ancestor went on. Naturally, he was referring to when he attempted to finish off the Dark Sovereign. Right after he spoke, the atmosphere was instantly filled with the might of all the Tianqian that spanned across the entire Dark Court. It was almost like they would immediately eliminate the forces of Dark Court if the Dark Sovereign were to reject the offer. Should things turn out that way, could the cultivators of the Dark Court fend off the enemies? The look of the Dark Sovereign's eyes behind her mask was gloomy. She knew the human ancestor was pulling her leg. If she were to decline, he would probably order his armies to obliterate the Dark Court and send another troop to invade the Dark World. If the human ancestor were to colonize the Dark World, would it be the world she wanted? The answer was obviously no. The human ancestor was a man of hypocrisy who boasted about being the righteousness of humanity. The human realm was a realm full of pretense and deception, so it was not a world she wanted to see. "Okay, I agree," the Dark Sovereign answered. The cultivators of the Dark Court let out a sigh of relief upon hearing that. They were afraid that the Dark Sovereign might reject the offer. If she did, they would be the first ones to be eliminated. If the gods were to launch a full-scale invasion, it would spell doom for the Dark Court. None of them would escape certain death, even if they reached the great emperor plane. There were ancient great emperors among the lineup of the Tianqian army. How could they even hope to survive that? Good. I'll update you when it's time, the human ancestor uttered. With that, an overwhelming aura flooded the atmosphere before the Tianqian army disappeared from the Dark Court. When the Tianqian army showed up in the Dark World, the same thing happened in the empty divine realm and devil world as well. The demon cloud above the sky of Devil Imperial Palace was blasting uncontrollably. The power of Devil Abyss dropped like a weight on everyone's head. When the Tianqian army arrived there, they raised their heads to look at the Devil Abyss, a primeval prison that remained intact until now, even after the collapse of the heavenly path. The face of the human ancestor was formed in the sky while unleashing his might toward the Devil Imperial Palace. All the devil overlords who resided inside the Devil Imperial Palace glared in the same direction with a sharp and domineering look. The appearance of the Tianqian army did not scare them even a bit. "Devil Emperor!" the human ancestor piped with a deafening voice. "State your business," said an icy and disdainful voice from the inside of Demon God Palace. Even though the Tianqian army was before him, the Devil Emperor's tone remained peerlessly condescending. "I wish to ally with you," the human ancestor said. "I'm not interested," the Devil Emperor replied without showing his face at all. At that, the human ancestor furrowed his brows in displeasure. It was apparent that things played out differently here than in other locations. Nonetheless, it was how the Devil Emperor would typically behave, so he brushed it off. "After I've conquered the divine prefecture and the heavenly realm, the cultivators of Devil World can leave this prison. By then, the order of the world will be altered radically. And I will surely not mistreat you," the human ancestor added. "We will take care of our own matters." The silhouette of the evil emperor could be seen standing in Demon God Palace. "Who are you working for?" "I am who I am. I do not work for anyone." Scowling at Devil Emperor, the human ancestor remarked, "I'm afraid things won't go your way this time." After he was done talking, the might of Tianqian filled the entire Devil Imperial Palace. Shooting a glance at the army of great emperors, the Devil Emperor commented, "I've never thought that I'd see the gods of ancient times in flesh. If you want to start a war, I can give you that. You've seen with your eyes the power of the heavenly path. And now, you shall taste the might of Devil Abyss." It went without saying that the Devil Emperor of the Devil World was a fearless man. The human ancestor went silent for a while after hearing that. "The power of the Devil Abyss," he said. Did he master the will of Devil Emperor already? Could he command the power of the Devil Abyss? The Devil Abyss was the tribulation during the creation of the world. It was brimming with unimaginable, world-destroying power. Back then, the demonic lord used the Devil Abyss to cause great destruction. Although the heavenly path suppressed him, the Devil Abyss had torn up the ladder as well, causing irreversible cracks to form. After the battle of the gods, the collapse of the heavenly path happened, and it rained down the great tribulation of apocalypse. That calamity did not consist of only the heavenly path's power. Therefore, the human ancestor would have to be cautious of Devil Emperor if the latter could command the power of Devil Abyss. The Tianqian army raised their heads and sensed the might of the Devil Abyss. Suddenly, a powerful cultivator from ancient times declared, according to legends, the Devil Abyss had existed with the heavenly path, and it can destroy the latter. But I'm not sure if this is true. Regardless of the truth, the Devil Abyss had existed until that day while the heavenly path had collapsed a long time ago. "Anyone wants a taste of it?" the Devil Emperor taunted as he stood there gallantly, staring at the ancient cultivator. Even though the man was facing an army of Tianqian, he remained haughty, as if he was above everyone else. "Devil Emperor, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Are you willing to be stuck in the Devil Abyss and let the whole Devil World suffer with you forever?" The human ancestor incited. This war will be the biggest one the world has yet to see since the collapse of the heavenly path. After that, I will reset the heavenly law and reform everything. If you did not participate in this war, all the work you had been doing all these years would be wasted. In the end, the devil world will remain the same. Nothing will change. Thanks for your concern, human ancestor, the devil emperor replied. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Peering at the devil emperor, the human ancestor added, when everything is over, I shall carry out the heavenly law. Does the devil world wish to be an independent territory? An immense pressure permeated the place when the human ancestor spoke. The devil emperor glared at him, knowing that the former was hiding a greater power. The devil world will decide for itself whether it will participate in the war or not. We will be the ones to plan for the when and the how as well. We will not be coerced into fighting your war, the devil emperor declared in a cold tone. The devil world will never submit to anyone. Even if the human ancestor were to seize control of the heavenly law, the devil world would never yield to anyone. Back then, the people of the devil world were imprisoned in the devil abyss, and they did not bow down to the heavenly path. Instead, the demonic lord had led 100 million of his subjects and resisted the heavenly path until it became the bat of heavenly laws. So he could not afford to end the legacy of his ancestors by being an embarrassment. Previously, he had taken part in the battle of the 6 great emperors because the human ancestor had invited him. Each of them had their agendas and were only using one another. However, things were different this time. The human ancestor did not extend an invitation, but blackmailed him with Tianqian army to join the war. If he participated in it, it would be the same as giving in to that man. It was like he had to do the human ancestor's bidding. So, they were 2 different stories. If that were to happen, the devil world would never be the same anymore. So, they would only use their way to fight this war. Good! The human ancestor glared at the devil emperor and uttered. Although he wanted to lay siege to the devil world immediately and annihilate the devil imperial palace, he was still cautious about the devil abyss. If the devil emperor could command the power of the devil abyss and summon it, it would be disastrous. At this point, he did not take any unnecessary risks. Having decided what to do, he would first wipe out the forces of the divine prefecture and heavenly realm, including the Baldies of the world of Buddhism. Then he would only return to settle the score with the devil world. By then, he could order the cultivators of the dark world and empty divine realm to raid this place. Then, he could finally conquer the whole world and make every being in this world his subject. The most fulfilling achievement would be ruling over the heavenly law. With that, the human ancestor left the devil imperial palace with his army and did not dare to launch an attack. As they went away, the devil emperor stood upright while watching their silhouettes disappear slowly. A great disaster was about to take place. This time, then human ancestor threatened the 7 realms. Not only did he come here, but he had also gone to the empty divine realm and the dark world to start this war. The scale of this war would be the largest since the collapse of the heavenly path. It would be a fight to take over the heavenly path. The human ancestor must have been fully prepared so that he would start a war so brazenly. This was something that had never happened before. Who would be the last one standing in this global catastrophe? The devil world could not escape the human ancestor forever. So, what kind of tribulation would he be facing this time? When human ancestor headed to the devil world, dark world, and empty divine realm, the people in the heavenly realm received the news of it relatively fast. Right then, Dong Huang the Great and Yi Futian announced to the public about the fast-approaching war in heavenly realm and divine prefecture. They also urged weaker cultivators to look for a place to hide or seek shelter in the gods' ruins continent through a space passage. In the world of Buddhism, Buddha Lord informed the citizens of Western Heaven about the imminent danger as well. They did not encourage the common people to enlist in the war because it did not belong to low-level cultivators. The entire 7 realms was shaken by the sudden news. Just like everyone had predicted, The moment of peace earlier was the calm before the storm. But the storm had arrived, and it would devastate every corner of the 7 realms. Yi Futian, Dong Huang the Great, and the others were gathered in the 99 heavens of the heavenly realm. The dark world and empty divine realm will be joining human realm in the war. However, the Devil Emperor had refused the human ancestors' offer. Dong Huang the Great announced. Even in different realms, he had his way of gathering information. Needless to say, it would not be a secret since the human ancestor carried out his operation in a flashy way. It was relatively easy to hear about this, since many people had seen it. Didn't the human ancestor launch attack in Devil World? Yi Futian asked, as he already knew about Tianqian army's revival. A significant number of great emperors had made their comeback since the collapse of the heavenly path, and all of them were working under human ancestor to fight in his war. It has to be Devil Abyss, Dong Huang the Great answered. Devil World has Devil Abyss, an ancient tribulation capable of destroying the whole world. If the Devil Emperor were to threaten the human ancestor with the Devil Abyss, even the latter would have to be prudent with his actions. At that, Yi Futian nodded. Was the Devil Abyss such a terrifying force? If that were the case, the tribulation that he had gone through back then must be the most common. The cultivators of the human realm, dark world, and empty divine realm have arrived at the borders of the divine prefecture, heavenly realm, and the world of Buddhism. Their troops are invading our realms continuously and preparing for the attack at any time now. Dong Huang the Great carried on. Since the revival of the gods, our forces are pale in comparison to theirs in terms of top-tier cultivators. Futian, what do you think of this situation? They would be at a disadvantage in the battle between great emperors, even though they had already brought a lot of time for themselves through the difference of the speed of the time flow. It was still insufficient because the numbers of great emperors they had were far too little in comparison. If one were to look at the numbers alone, they would be at an absolute disadvantage. Although they had 3 members among their apex combatants, Yi Futian, Dong Huang the Great, and the Buddha, the enemy also had 3 fighters, the human ancestor, evil emperor, and dark sovereign. Furthermore, the opponent had a bunch of extraordinary ancient emperor-level beings among their lineup. Those individuals must have been extremely powerful as well. On the face of it, they did not have an advantage regardless of the aspects. Once the war started, the outcome would be catastrophic. There would only be hope for them if the Devil World were to fight alongside them. There is still good news for us. At the very least, we know that the human ancestor still hasn't fully recovered, Yi Futian remarked. Or else, he would not need to go through the roundabout way like starting a war. He could have just executed his enemy. Dong Huang the Great nodded. It was indeed good news. He had a strong hunch that the human ancestor, the one who murdered Heavenly Emperor and ended the life of his wife, was not being himself currently. That man must not have been fully recovered yet. Otherwise, he would not have to start a full-scale war. He could have just slaughtered all of them. However, the enemy could not wait any longer, for he had known about the existence of the power to change the flow of time. There would be more unknown variables the longer he delayed. Hence, he started the war immediately after the revival of the gods from ancient times. We should break up our troops, Yi Futian suggested all of a sudden. Dong Huang the Great and the others were dumbfounded for a while before getting what he was trying to say. The return of the gods pulled the distance between the number of their forces, especially when it came to the great emperors. If they were to go head-to-head with their opponents, when the difference between the amount of their top-tier fighters was this huge, it would be their certain death. This is a good idea, U2 commented, but we do not have much time left now. He did not care about keeping up his appearances. All he wanted was to be the one who had the last laugh. I am planning to move the entire 99 heavens of the heavenly realm into the inner world created by my micro-heavenly path. With that, I can always dispatch our troops to different battlefields for reinforcements. Besides, they can also focus on their cultivation while staying inside. If we could buy 1 year for them, it would be equal to 81 years for them, Futian explained. What 81 years could change was almost unimaginable. It could bring about a radical transformation to everyone's cultivation level. There won't be a problem for Heavenly Realm and Donghuang Imperial Palace. However, the spirit mountain of the world of Buddhism has always been a holy land for the people of Western Heaven all this time. No matter what, we cannot afford to desecrate it. The imminent war will definitely involve the entire 7 realms, including the world of Buddhism. While we can break up our forces, what if the enemy were to strike the spirit mountain? I am afraid. Donghuang the Great had several concerns. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Heavenly Realm was already in ruins for some time. Things had turned for the worse after the passing of Heavenly Emperor and the transformation of the sovereign princess into the path. It was only recently that the 99 heavens of Heavenly Realm was rebuilt. Hence, if they were to break up their forces, it would not affect Heavenly Realm much. Furthermore, Futian was planning to move the entire 99 heavens away. Donghuang Imperial Palace in Divine Prefecture only had 500 years of history. It was built by Donghuang the Great and governed by him all this time. Since it did not have any other history, Donghuang the Great could decide the fate of Donghuang Imperial Palace. There was nothing to regret about history. To sacrifice it for the war was nothing much. But what about the holy land of the world of Buddhism? Could the people there give it up? Spirit Mountain was the foundation of the faith of the people of Western Heaven. If the forces of Buddhism were to leave the Spirit Mountain, it might cause an uproar in the world of Buddhism. It might cause many cultivators of Buddhism to question their faith. It's not a problem for the world of Buddhism. The voice of Wutian Buddha, Lord, could be heard. Many great Buddhas had shown up back when Futian had requested Donghuang the Great to invite the cultivators of the world of Buddhism and Donghuang Imperial Palace to his inner world for cultivation. Therefore, one of them was here to talk about the plan. If one's heart were filled with Buddhism, any place could be the Spirit Mountain, Wutian Buddha, Lord continued. Your Majesty, I am a little disappointed, for you, too, are an erudite Buddhism practitioner. So, you should not make such a silly mistake. Donghuang the Great noticed his carelessness. Then he bowed to Wutian Buddha, Lord, and said, You are right, great Buddha. It was thoughtless of me. The teaching of Buddhism emphasized emptiness. All is vanity. To commoners who were not knowledgeable in the teaching of Buddhism, Spirit Mountain was the holy land of the world of Buddhism. On the other hand, the true enlightened Buddhists would never be fixated on material things. In that case, it is decided then. However, I think we should inform everyone first, Futian said. I am still a bit worried whether or not the human ancestor will order the great emperors to attack the weaker ones. There was an unspoken rule for a war of this scale. Those who had walked on the path of the emperors should not lay their fingers on the weaker cultivators. Otherwise, they would bear a great sin that would eventually bring them disaster. How could a low-level cultivator stand against a great emperor? No, Donghuang the Great answered. The human ancestor cares about his reputation a lot. Although no one knows the reason, the way he rules the human realm is different from the Dark Sovereign. He has always been preaching about being the righteousness of humanity. Even during the upcoming war, he will still propagate justice and represent the righteousness of humanity to bring order to the human realm. Hence, the human ancestor will not order a fruitless killing. What about the evil emperor and the Dark Sovereign? Futian questioned because he did not know about the other 6 great emperors as much as his father, Donghuang the Great. They will probably obey the rules. No matter what, they still have to consider their realm. Donghuang the Great replied. Futian nodded. If the great emperors were to kill uncontrollably, there would only be very few people left alive. All right. Futian bowed his head. So, we shall focus on extermination. I would like to see how many of the gods are asking to be killed again after having just made their comeback recently. I will be going back to the palace to start preparation, Dong Huang the Great informed. I have already filled the Buddha in on this, Futian Buddha, Lord uttered. He had no qualms about it. He will make arrangements for the Western heaven world of Buddhism to defend itself from invasion. When push comes to shove, we will break up our people. I'm ashamed, Yi Futian noted while bowing to Futian Buddha Lord. This is a predestined fate. Since it is inexorable, the only thing we can do is face it together. Heavenly Emperor is a man of destiny. Everything will eventually end, Futian Buddha Lord stated. Okay. Yi Futian nodded. Although he was facing an inevitable doom, he remained optimistic. Since everything was bound to happen, everything would be over soon with the help from the world of Buddhism. With that, Yi Futian began to move the 99 heavens. Meanwhile, many armies invaded the heavenly realm, divine prefecture, and the world of Buddhism like a flood. Apart from Devil World, the other 6 realms had turned into a war zone. The army of cultivators of the human realm were the ones who arrived in the heavenly realm. As for the divine prefecture, the cultivators of the empty divine realm were the ones who showed up there. Besides them, there were also many human realm combatants besieging the divine prefecture. To the enemies, taking down heavenly realm was the easiest because it had long since declined. So, they did not deploy a lot of their forces there. Lastly, the troops of the Dark Sovereign were the ones who raided the world of Buddhism. Naturally, there were cultivators of the human realm among the lineup as well. Those were the bunch who had wished to strike the world of Buddhism. So they joined forces with the army of the Dark World, hoping to find a chance to plunder the land. All cultivators had their motivation and will, so they would not follow things blindly. Some of those who took part in this war idolized the human ancestor, but some wished to seize the opportunity to improve themselves through this war, since they could train and loot cultivation resources simultaneously. While the warring age had always been the quickest time to grow oneself, it was also dangerous. Nevertheless, they had confidence that they would win this war. Since it was a battle without unforeseen factors, they would occupy the realms without breaking a sweat. The people in the heavenly imperial city were trembling in fear because they knew war had erupted. The human realm led the forces of the empty divine realm and dark world to start the war, and their armies had already arrived in heavenly realm. Quick, look at 99 heavens now, someone exclaimed. Many people noticed that the 99 heavens had become more perceivable. There were no barriers surrounding it anymore. Countless magnificent temples could be seen on every layer. At the top layer, they noticed a heavenly palace situated in the sky. That was the heavenly imperial palace. 99 heavens had become a small world with a heavenly path. What is actually going on now? The crowds mumbled. There were troops of cultivators at different locations in the 99 heavens. They were all under the direct command of the Heavenly Emperor Palace and belonged to it. Some of them had been there for a long time, while the others had joined recently. They hovered at multiple positions of 99 heavens, a genuine Tiantian army. At the peak of the Heavenly Palace, everyone caught sight of a silhouette with white hair and surrounded by 9-color divine light. It was a spectacular sight to behold. Immediately, everyone knew that it was the current heavenly emperor, Yi Futian. Yi Futian had already merged with the remnants of the heavenly path left by his mother, so he would not leave anything behind. Turning to look at the commoners beneath him, he declared, "The human ancestor is leading the human realm, empty divine realm, and dark world to start an invasion war that will turn the 7 realms into a battlefield. Things are different than before this time. It is a worldwide invasion. So, regardless of your cultivation level, you will be affected by the aftermath. In the worst-case scenario, you might face life and death situation. Heavenly realm had just recovered from declination in recent years. So, our overall forces will be weaker. When the war comes, I hope everyone can protect themselves and try to avoid the war zone as much as possible. Please find a way to survive this ordeal." This war should never involve the cultivators of the heavenly realm, but the human ancestor had insisted on making this happen and starting the War of the Seven Realms. Even though I've ascended the throne and became Heavenly Emperor, I still couldn't prevent this war from happening. I'm ashamed of myself, but I, alongside the cultivators of the Heavenly Imperial Palace, will swear to give our all to end this war. Regardless of victory or defeat, I hope your goal is to survive this tribulation and live. / Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Yi Futian did not encourage anyone to join the war. Instead, he requested the people to avoid it as much as possible and protect themselves to survive this calamity. This should have been the problem between Emperor-level forces alone. Since it was only to achieve their personal goals, they should never involve the entire cultivation world. Every cultivator should not be regarded as a citizen of the realm they had chosen to stay here to work on their cultivation. The war should be fought by the direct subordinates of the imperial palaces alone. The outcome of the war should not be decided by the cultivators in the world, but by the great emperors. Your Majesty, what if we are willing to fight for the heavenly realm? Someone asked. That's right. We are willing to be part of the heavenly imperial palace and join this war, another person chimed in. Yi Futian was touched upon hearing that because he had never expected the cultivators of the heavenly realm to have a sense of belonging. By rights, they should be focused on protecting themselves. This war is unprecedented. It will affect the entire world. I hope that you will make your decision prudently because the likelihood of you dying in this war is very high, Yi Futian reminded. The heavenly palace was once glorious. An elderly cultivator raised their head to the sky and sighed. Now that we finally waited for the ascension of a new emperor who is compassionate toward his subjects, I am willing to pave the way of the new world alongside your Majesty. I want to enlist in the army as well. Many people noted continuously. Although plenty of people wished to join the war, it was still relatively little compared to the total amount in the crowd. After all, it was a battle that involved all of the realms. Plus, the enemy had a greater advantage, so they would most likely end up fighting a losing battle. Thus, to join the war would be equal to signing their own death warrant. Good. Those who are willing to join the war may come over now, Yi Futian instructed. Then he looked in a lower direction and said, Please lend me a hand, Tianyin Buddha, Lord. Sure. Tianyin Buddha, Lord nodded. Just then, he transmitted his voice throughout the entire heavenly realm and announced, The War of the Seven Realms starts now. Those who are willing to join the war may whisper your request. I will pick up your voice from every corner of this realm. But I still wish to inform all of you that what His Majesty said was true. The mortality rate of this war will be extremely high. So, I advise you to ponder your decision carefully. Tianyin Buddha, Lord's cultivation, was pretty rapid since the substantial change occurred in the world and had finally reached the great Emperor plane. He had mastered one of the 6 superpowers, clairaudience, so he could pick up every sound within heavenly realm. If he were to perfect it, he could even hear everything in the 7 realms. Soon, Tianyin Buddha, Lord, heard voices of the people's requests. Then he glanced at Wutian Buddha, Lord, and said, I will need Wutian Buddha, Lord's help in this. Wutian Buddha, Lord, had also reached the pinnacle of cultivation and mastered celerity, so he could traverse a great distance at the speed of thought. Okay. Wutian Buddha, Lord nodded. I'm beyond grateful to the both of you. Yi Futian bowed to Tianyin Buddha, Lord, and Wutian Buddha, Lord. With the help of the 2 Buddha Lords, he could recruit the people of Heavenly Realm who were willing to volunteer themselves in the war. After putting their hands together, the 2 Buddha Lords disappeared into thin air with their thoughts. Yi Futian was not worried about the safety of the 2 of them. Tianyin Buddha, Lord, could pick up all the sounds across vast space and had incredibly acute sensory abilities. Wutian Buddha, Lord, was the master of celerity. If the 2 were to coordinate with one another, hardly anyone could threaten their lives. A while later, the 2 Buddha Lords brought a troop of cultivators back. Even the people of Heavenly Imperial City were brought here as well. Fong Si-Yuan, do your thing, Yi Futian ordered. Yes, master. Fong Si-Yuan nodded, turned around, and headed toward the army of cultivators. In the blink of an eye, the two Buddha lords left the scene and headed toward other locations in Heavenly Realm. Yi Futian stood on top of the Heavenly Palace and waited patiently. Finally, terrifying storms hit on multiple locations of the sky above the Heavenly Realm. Following that, numerous space passages appeared in many different locations. In a flash, the armies of the human realm descended from the sky. Staring downward, they played hysterical smirks on their faces. The human realm would be occupying the 7 realms, and they were the witnesses and participants of the historical moment. The two Buddha lords brought more people back to the Heavenly Imperial Palace with them. With a thought, Yi Futian covered all the cultivators in 99 heavens with a mysterious power. Right then, their bodies immediately vanished from sight, and they were brought into his inner world, created with his heavenly path. His troop, the Heavenly Realm Army, would cultivate inside his inner world. It was a portable army that followed him everywhere. A suffocating god's might pervaded the sky above the Heavenly Imperial City. Following the color change of the firmament, a peerless and dominating emperor's might pressurized every person in the Heavenly Imperial City. All of them felt like it was the end of the world while staring at the sky in terror. Had Tianqian army shown up already? Many figures appeared in different directions of the sky. The color of the sky above the entire Heavenly Imperial City changed. The frightening divine power enveloped the Heavenly Imperial City as if there was a Tianqian in every direction. The cultivators of the Heavenly Imperial City were all terrified. They had heard that the human ancestor helped great emperors from the ancient times return. They did not think that there would be so many. How did the human ancestor revive these ancient emperors? No wonder Heavenly Emperor Yi Futian had given up the Heavenly Imperial Palace. The great emperors of both sides were not even at the same level. The number was too different. The Heavenly Emperor didn't leave. Many people looked at the white-haired figure above the Heavenly Imperial City and started feeling worried for Yi Futian. The gods had come with murderous intent in their eyes. There were great emperors everywhere in the dome of the sky, sealing off this part of the sky. Where did those people go? A voice screamed. The human ancestor's face appeared in the sky. His aura was terrifying. Yi Futian had brought away all the cultivators of the 99 heavens. They had vanished directly. Was it the micro-world? Yi Futian glanced at the human ancestor's face and did not reply. Instead, he looked at the various gods and said, I do not know what methods the human ancestor used to help you all return, but since you are back, you should treasure it well. Do not get involved in the present conflicts. The gods all had surprised expressions at Yi Futian's words, and a powerful voice spoke out. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Are today's great emperors all so arrogant? They had all been great emperors from the era before the heavenly path had collapsed. Some had even been super great emperors. Yi Futian was only a junior. Even though he had flashy achievements, they still felt that arrogance when he spoke to all the seniors like this. This is not the old era anymore, Yi Futian said. You all are only old gods and should get accustomed to today's cultivation world. If you retreat now, I can act like nothing has happened. And if we don't retreat, an ancient emperor asked. If you do not retreat, then it means we are mortal enemies. If you die again, you might not have the chance to return again, Yi Futian replied. Yi Futian. The human ancestor's terrible might clamped down on Yi Futian as he said, You are even more presumptuous than your father, Dong Huang. With that, he looked up to the sky and said, Dong Huang, you come out too. As soon as he spoke, a figure appeared in the sky above Yi Futian. The father and son stood one above another, surrounded by the ancient gods. Futian, this is the first time we fight together as father and son. I did not think that we would be facing the gods of ancient times. How many do you think we can kill?" Dong Huang the Great asked Yi Futian. In terms of presumptuousness, he was not any lesser than Yi Futian. The father and son duo were both great emperors of the modern times. On the other side were all ancient emperors, including the human ancestor. However, the human ancestor had lived too long. He had lived from ancient times to the modern day. Just as Dong Huang the Great said, this battle was between the present and ancient emperors. The cultivators of the heavenly imperial city stood in the lower sky and gazed into the heavens. Dong Huang the Great's words made their hearts pound furiously, and hot blood ran through their veins. The father and son would fight the gods. Dong Huang the Great had asked how many they could kill. "Any that we kill is an advantage for us," Yi Futian replied. "Father, if mother was here and the three of us worked together, they would have no chance at all. If your mother were here, she'd be enough by herself," Dong Huang the Great responded. Shameless words. The human ancestors' words reverberated in the sky. Horrifying and turbid divine lightning appeared in the heavens, covering the sky and sun. It hung over the sky above Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great. Boom! With one thought by Dong Huang the Great, the revelation divine power instantly enveloped the vast lands, covering the entire heavenly imperial city. All divine power within the revelation divine domain seemed to be sealed off. Those ancient gods' divine powers were also restricted. The instant that the revelation divine domain enveloped the heavenly imperial city, Yi Futian's body moved. He appeared before a great emperor in a flash, descending directly despite the distance between them, and he pushed his palm forward. Yi Futian's palm contained extremely dazzling divine light, and emperor runes were carved on it. He was incredibly domineering and could crush everything in the world. Seal of the Heavenly Emperor. That great emperor was not a super great emperor, and his divine power was being restricted too. What welcomed him was a super strong seal of the Heavenly Emperor. It crushed down directly, and the Golden Emperor rune enlarged in his eyes. It was like a world. No matter how he ran, he would still be under the attack of this divine seal. Boom! Divine power transformed into Xuanwu beast protection to protect his body, but when the seal of the Heavenly Emperor blasted down, it was shattered directly. Plus, he was also being restricted by the revelation divine domain. How could he counter Yi Futian's palm? Bang! With a huge sound, the Xuanwu beast was destroyed. The seal of the Heavenly Emperor blasted onto his body, shattering his physical body. His spiritual soul wanted to escape, but the Emperor rune emitted destructive divine light and directly destroyed it. His soul scattered and died. Back then, when the Heavenly Path released the Doomsday Tribulations, it had targeted the great emperors of the entire world rather than just one person. Thus, many gods had died under the tribulations, but quite a few great emperors had survived using other methods. But Yi Futian did not give them this chance. With his absolute power, he naturally made them die from a scattered soul. Only this counted as a complete death. He had said earlier that if they did not treasure this chance at returning, they would probably not get another chance. A great emperor was killed forcefully by Yi Futian. This made the hearts of the heavenly imperial city cultivators skip a beat. However, the instant that Yi Futian had attacked, the other gods in the sky were also able to react. They released their divine powers to the max under the constraints of the revelation divine domain. Many of the super great emperors had terrifying divine powers and broke through the constraints of the revelation divine domain. The chaos true thunder swords in the sky attacked instantly, going for Yi Futian. But Dong Huang the Great's figure appeared in the sky above Yi Futian. He released the revelation divine domain to the max and pointed a finger at the sky, blocking many attacks descending from above. But even so, many beams of destructive divine power still streaked toward Yi Futian, landing on his body. The attacks of strong great emperors were incredibly fast. It was all in the span of one thought. Yi Futian had killed a great emperor while surrounded by great emperors, so he naturally had to face the attacks from the other strong figures of the emperor level. But the instant that those attacks fell, 9-colored divine light wrapped around Yi Futian. They transformed into the frightening divine power of the law and annihilated the incoming attacks directly. It was the 9 dragons' true qi. At that moment, Yi Futian was as peerless as an ancient emperor who had returned. His mother had left the heavenly path of the 99 heavens, and now he had inherited the power of that heavenly path. Naturally, he could inherit the forces that Ji Wudao had inherited in the past. It was even more compatible for him. Whether it was the seal of the heavenly emperor of the 9 dragons' true qi, they had all been left by his mother, and he had inherited them. Just then, a streak of sword light lit up in the sky. This streak of sword light seemed to have come from outside the heavens. It passed through time and space, directly cutting apart the constraints that the revelation divine domain put on the divine power. It entered the 9 dragons' true qi and hacked down on Yi Futian's body. Poof, poof! There were sharp, grating sounds, and then Yi Futian's body vanished from his spot. He retreated to the distance. The defenses from the divine power of the world on his body were sliced apart, and a bloody gash appeared on his body under the beam of sword qi. The bloody gash started healing, but the gash contained extremely frightening sword qi. It seemed to be not so easy to scatter. The divine power of vitality in Yi Futian's body flooded madly to the injury to heal it. Raising his head, Yi Futian looked into the distance. There was a middle-aged man in dark clothing. Merely standing there, he gave off an extremely sharp feeling. Sword qi flowed all around him as if he was the ruler of that area of the sky. As sword will flowed across his body, the swordsmen of the entire heavenly imperial city felt the sword will within their bodies go out of control. It was like they wanted to submit to this gust of sword will. They all looked to the sky in horror. That figure in the heavens was like the master of the swords of all heavens. Eternal Sword Lord. Dong Huang the Great stared at the figure that had appeared and thought of another super being from the era before the heavenly path had collapsed. The Eternal Sword Lord had created the Eternal Sword Domain. He was skilled in the sword way of all heavens, and the sword domains that he created could last for eternity. He had been a supreme figure of the ancient sword way and stood at the pinnacle. His level was above all of the gods and emperors he had killed before. This kind of being had not died under the world tribulations and returned today. He was also being used by the human ancestor. The Eternal Sword Lord's level was definitely above his back then. He had been one of the strongest figures in the world. One could imagine how threatening he was. Even though they knew that the human ancestor had helped the various gods return and there would definitely be super great emperors, Dong Huang the Great had still underestimated them. He did not think that someone like the Eternal Sword Lord could return too. What did the human ancestor do exactly to let them return? Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. The Eternal Sword Lord walked forward. His body was like a sword as if it was not made of flesh. His eyes contained immense sword will that could pierce someone. Being stared at by him made one feel the endless sword will attacking. Did anyone in this era still remember him? Back then, he had been one of those who fought against the heavenly path. At the time of the world tribulations, his cultivation had been one of the top great emperors. He had been cared for by the world tribulations and died on the spot. His physical body had been destroyed, and his spiritual soul had shattered, transforming into an eternal beam of sword will in this world. However, he did not think that he would have the chance to return. Using this beam of eternal sword will, someone in this era helped him return. Even though he had not returned to the past and his abilities could not return to their peak, as long as he was back, anything was possible. A frightening sword domain appeared. It was the Eternal Sword Domain. In that instant, all of the heavens were enveloped by this sword domain. Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great were both within this sword domain. The revelation divine matrix overlapped with it, but could not repress this sword domain. The eternal sword domain contained endless sword will. They shot murderously towards Dong Huang the Great and Yi Futian, tearing apart the void like countless sword rivers. Many of the surrounding great emperors saw the eternal sword lord attack, so they just stood there to watch. The eternal sword lord had been an aggressive and fearless being in their era, so killing two modern great emperors was naturally easy for him. Since the ancient emperors returned, they would naturally have to take back their era. These two modern great emperors dared to dream about swaying the heavens. Dong Huang the Great walked forward, but he heard Yi Futian say, "Father, hand it to me." Hearing Yi Futian's voice, Dong Huang the Great turned and glanced at him. Then he nodded slightly. His figure retreated to the back and put up strong defenses around him to fend off the invasion of the sword path power. Meanwhile, divine power seeped out of Yi Futian's body, filling this vast space. In that moment, all of the great emperors felt a different kind of aura. Many things in this divine domain seemed to be the same, but it was also somehow different. Oh! The eternal sword lord's brows furrowed. He sensed a different kind of law aura. The laws in Yi Futian's divine domain were different. It was a law order that belonged to himself. But he only furrowed his brows. It was the same for him. The eternal sword domain contained his own laws of the sword path. He waved his palm in the air. Instantly, many sword rivers fell from the dome of the sky. They contained limitless sword will. Those sword rivers were extremely aggressive and made the great path roar. They wanted to rip apart the sky as they cut down at Yi Futian. The people of the heavenly imperial city saw the aggressive divine swords fall down like the Milky Way. They all felt incredibly shocked. This kind of sword could destroy a world, but it was going for Yi Futian at this moment. Divine light wrapped around Yi Futian's body as if he represented the law of the heavenly path. A similarly shocking sword materialized. 9 dragons' true chi wrapped around the divine sword and carved a word. The word was Emperor. This seemed to be the most noble sword in the world. Once this sword was out, everyone would bow down. This was the king of the swords. Sword of the heavenly emperor. The eternal sword lord was surprised when he saw Yi Futian's sword. This sword was like the sword of the heavenly emperor from the Deva. It was the sword that governed the universe. Boom! Divine light flashed. The sword of the heavenly emperor had been created by Yi Futian's power of the law of the heavenly path, carrying ultimate divine power. It crashed against the divine sword of the eternal sword lord. Instantly, a gust of destructive force swept through the skies. The horrible sword will ripped through all beings. The divine domain of the great path and the surrounding defenses were all ripped apart. Strong light pierced their eyes. Before the people of the heavenly imperial city could process everything, they saw the various gods transform into beams of light and disappear. In the blink of an eye, everyone had disappeared. What happened? The people of the heavenly imperial city felt their hearts pound without stop. The destructive storm of sword chi was still there, but the various gods had transformed into beams of light and left the heavenly imperial city. That sword was enough to destroy the entire heavenly imperial city. If the heavenly emperor had not blocked that sword, we all would have died, someone said, feeling belated fear. The others all felt chills down their spine after hearing that. Earlier, that sword had fallen down like the Milky Way. If it had come down, the sword was landing on the heavenly imperial city. Then the entire city would probably be obliterated directly by the sword will. How could they survive with their cultivation planes? Will anything happen to the heavenly emperor? Someone asked. Heavenly Emperor Yi has been cultivating in seclusion all this time and combined with a heavenly path. His abilities have already evolved and can't be compared to how he had been. He can directly take the other's sword, so you can imagine how strong he is. He would not stay to fight if he is not confident, someone said. The Heavenly Emperor is working with Dong Huang the Great. Even if they cannot defeat the gods, surely they can retreat safely. All the strong figures nodded, and they gazed into the heavens. At that moment, they actually felt a sense of belonging. In the battle between the old and new gods, who would become the legitimate rulers of the world. A group of strong cultivators at the Tianqin level passed through the vast void with extreme speed. They even went through the space passageway and entered the original realm. Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great were at the front. They seemed to have transformed into two spots of light. Yi Futian transformed into a beam of light, streaking through the endless starry sky. The Eternal Sword Lord was tight on his heels. He advanced in the form of a sword and was also extremely fast. Just then, the Eternal Sword Lord's entire body dazzled like a heaven-slaying divine sword. He raised his finger and pointed at the sky. The upper heavens instantly started changing and transforming. Cut! The instant he waved his hand, it was like the Milky Way fell from the heavens. The sword was like the sword of time and space. It surpassed time and space, cutting down at Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great. It set out later, but arrived first. Even though Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great were streaking through space at a frightening speed, they were still in the range of the sword path's attacks. The two both felt a powerful gust of sword will. Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great both released divine power from their bodies. The revelation divine domain covered the vast void, causing the sword to be obstructed a little, but it still could not stop this sword that surpassed time and space. The sword will continue to shoot down murderously. However, at the same time, Yi Futian also released his divine domain of the Great Path. With his body as the center, it transformed into a world. When the sword will cut down, time and space became chaotic, affecting that sword. But despite this, that sword still did not change its direction. It cut down directly at them. One could imagine just how terrifying this sword was. It could tear apart the laws of his divine domain. In a certain way, it indeed surpassed the laws of time and space. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. This sword cut a beautiful sword arc in the vast space, splitting the void into halves. It transformed into a sword river with unparalleled power and might. Yi Futian looked up at that sword, and then he waved the sword in his hand. Under the eyes of all the Tianqin, Yi Futian sent out 81 swords instantly. Every sword was an extremely aggressive sword. They were also complete swords. How can he be so fast? Those great emperors had a misperception as if they were in a different dimension as Yi Futian. The Eternal Sword Lord's sword was so fast. His sword speed was definitely one of the fastest swords in the entire world. But in that instant, they vaguely sensed that the sword had slowed down. Or perhaps it was not the Eternal Sword Lord's sword that had slowed down, but that Yi Futian had more time. The law of time. Everyone's hearts shuddered. Yi Futian had used the advantage of the law of time to change the flow of time. This allowed him to have more time, and thus sent out the 81 swords instantly. 81 beams of sword will crashed against the Milky Way sword that surpassed time and space. Sword Qi shot out millions of miles. Even stars in the distance were ripped apart by the sword will. At the same time, Yi Futian's divine domain of the Great Path expanded, and his divine power enveloped all the gods. Those Tianqin who had pursued him felt that they were covered by Yi Futian's divine domain of the Great Path now. They all released their own law's rule power at the same moment. The vast space was instantly filled with extremely chaotic and aggressive divine power. Boom! There was a horrifying boom. An extremely huge figure appeared in the sky like the king of the void. It was the human ancestor's figure, enveloped by the turbid divine thunder in this area and accompanied by beams of falling divine light. Frightening chaos true thunder swords rained down, shooting directly at Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great. The Eternal Sword Lord was strong enough, but the human ancestor did not want to keep waiting. Yi Futian had already developed to an extremely frightening step. After combining with that heavenly path, his abilities were even comparable to the present 6 emperors. Wham! Yi Futian's figure streaked through the void directly. The Chaos True Thunder swords raining down actually could not capture his figure. Another great emperor attacked, and the space of this boundless world seemed to solidify suddenly. Everything stopped moving. A super great emperor released his own great path, divine domain. Under that restrictive force, Yi Futian's figure was revealed. A Chaos True Thunder sword shot down, blasting directly at his body. It had locked onto him. Yi Futian released the divine power around him to the max. The divine power, sealing off the space, was ripped apart. He pointed to the sky, and the extremely domineering Heavenly Emperor sword crashed against the Chaos True Thunder sword. They were both extremely rigid and powerful, incomparably domineering attacks. The Heavenly Emperor sword that Yi Futian had released was the Heavenly Emperor sword that contained his divine power. The human ancestor watched as the Heavenly Emperor sword and Chaos True Thunder sword shattered. This put a surprised expression on him. His Chaos True Thunder sword was one of the greatest attacks in the world, but it was only comparable to Yi Futian's Heavenly Emperor sword. The divine power contained in the Heavenly Emperor sword seemed to destroy everything. Even the Chaos True Thunder was destroyed. It seemed that the son of Donghuang had reached a frightening level after these years of growth. Clang! The ringing of bells suddenly sounded in the sky. The ringing was very long and stretched far. Its reverberations shattered the space, causing the divine power that froze the space to collapse and shatter. The various gods all looked at Yi Futian and saw many ancient bronze bells surrounding his body. These ancient bells all contained peerless divine power. The beams of divine light rained down from the ancient bells, causing everything to get destroyed and the space to be pulverized. Yi Futian's power made the gods too scared to separate. When great emperors fought, one person could stand their ground. There was actually a great distance between them and Yi Futian, but these great emperors did not dare to be too scattered. They were worried that Yi Futian would kill a great emperor with one strike like earlier. The ancient bronze bells revolved endlessly, and divine light swept around. The divine power that froze the space continuously shattered. Every divine bell radiated the force of destruction. Are his combat abilities really that strong? The various Tianqian stared at Yi Futian. This junior great emperor of the modern ages was actually this strong. He threatened these ancient emperors even in this situation where they were attacking together. If they had come alone to kill Yi Futian, probably very few of them could fight against Yi Futian alone. Even Donghuang the Great was a bit surprised. He looked at the white-haired figure before him, and there was a pleased look in his eyes. He seemed to see her shadow. Before, he had exchanged simple blows with Yi Futian and knew that the present Yi Futian was no longer below his level. Thus, these two dared to face these gods. It was a powerful kind of confidence. But even so, he discovered that he had still underestimated Yi Futian. He was even more extraordinary than he'd imagined. Thus, Donghuang the Great did not help Yi Futian right now. He wanted to see what level Yi Futian was at. Universe-breaking bell. The human ancestor looked at Yi Futian's body. The universe-breaking bell was still the ability of the Heavenly Emperor. It could shatter the void, but in the hands of Yi Futian, this universe-breaking bell perfectly fused with the law divine power that Yi Futian was skilled at. Its force was shockingly strong and directly tore apart the divine power that froze the space. All the ancient bells spun while revolving around the world. The divine light that dropped down was filled with extremely destructive divine power. Clang! The overlapping ringing was endlessly heard. The universe-breaking bells directly broke open the void as it advanced. transforming into beautiful beams of light that shot at the gods. Every bell was boundlessly huge and could shatter a portion of the sky. Seeing that Yi Futian could still have the ability to attack the other great emperors while under their siege, the Eternal Sword Lord furrowed his brows too. He took a step forward and waved his sword. Sword Qi shot out for millions of miles and shattered the void, cutting arcs of endless darkness. It shattered divine power, ripped the space, and went to kill Yi Futian despite the difference in time and space. This sword stretched millions of miles in all directions. When it cut down, a flash of sword light appeared in the vast starry sky. All the space in its path was broken and cracked apart. In one instant, the world was about to be ripped apart. In ancient times, the Eternal Sword Lord could split apart a star planet with one sword and defeat all the beings. Even though his abilities were not at his peak now, his sword was still frighteningly powerful. A silver spear made of divine power somehow appeared in Yi Futian's hands. The instant that the sword fell, the spear attacked the incoming sword like a dragon, fast as the speed of light. The void collapsed instantly, and a world-ending storm swept across the air. However, that sword kept cracking until it scattered in the void. But at almost the same time, many Chaos True Thunder swords attacked simultaneously, stabbing Yi Futian's body. They arrived right after that sword. Yi Futian's spear swept across, and then attacked the Chaos True Thunder sword in the sky. The destructive windstorm shot down murderously, forcing his body to keep falling down the sky. However, the Chaos True Thunder swords still could not hurt Yi Futian. Bang, bang, bang. There was a continuous stream of sounds. It was emitted by Yi Futian's universe-breaking bell when it crashed against the various gods. The dozen great emperors had difficulty enduring the might of the universe-breaking bell. They were hurt by the reverberations and retreated. Some of them even suffered heavy injuries. Their physical bodies almost collapsed from the universe-breaking bell's hits. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. At the same time, the Eternal Sword domain enveloped the vast space. With one thought from the Eternal Sword Lord, countless divine swords streamed down instantly, going murderously toward Yi Futian. Each sword contained shocking divine might that could kill a Tianxin. Yi Futian looked up with a glance. 9 dragons, true qi, wrapped around his body, and the silhouette of the heavenly emperor appeared. He was peerless, with his body as the center. Rounds of world particle defenses appeared. They transformed into a light screen that blocked the incoming sword's path. But the Eternal Sword Lord's sword path was also the law power of the sword path that he controlled. The destructive divine sword penetrated the world particle defense directly and zoomed at Yi Futian's body. The time and space before Yi Futian were distorted, causing some weaker sword will to be buried in the chaotic space. However, some super-strong swords still passed through the layers of obstacles and shattered the chaotic currents of time and space. The sword path contained the power to rip apart the space, causing the various divine swords to reach Yi Futian's body. But just then, it was like Yi Futian had created the heavenly emperor divine body. Many runes wrapped around the emperor's silhouette. It flashed with golden light like an undying battle form. The divine sword shot over and produced an intense crashing noise, shaking Yi Futian's body. However, it could not continue advancing. Clearly, it was impossible to sway Yi Futian only by using the sword will of the sword domain. Yi Futian's combat ability was not any weaker than the Eternal Sword Lord. Kaboom! Just then, there was a horrifying explosion in the sky. They saw the world collapse and shatter. Everything was about to be destroyed. Yi Futian looked up and saw the human ancestors' huge palm print crushed down. It was like there was a world hidden in the palm. The frightening chaos true thunder was hidden inside. Carrying the supreme destructive force, it crushed the space. Everything in its path was obliterated. This horrifying palm seal blocked off the sky. It was boundlessly huge, covering the vast void. Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great's bodies were both shrouded by it. It crushed everything and grappled at Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great's space. There was a muffled sound. It was like everything was going to be destroyed under this palm seal. The human ancestor had transformed into the ruler of this world, or the high and mighty god that controlled the fates of all beings. Dong Huang the Great also looked toward that horrifyingly destructive palm seal, and his brows furrowed. Then he saw that Yi Futian's entire body dazzled with divine light. The beautiful glow contained supreme crushing force, as if he would shatter that supreme palm seal squarely. Boom! Yi Futian's body advanced as the path. He held the Tianqian spear in his hands, and the divine power in his body flooded crazily into the spear. He stabbed into the heavens, and instantly the destructive, chaotic, true thunder that could shatter everything ended up getting broken instead. A huge boom spread. Yi Futian's spear blasted onto that boundlessly huge giant palm of Tianqian. It was like a person striking a small, destructive world. He seemed extremely small in comparison, like a moth trying to sway a tree. However, Yi Futian really did sway that boundlessly huge palm. The spear ripped everything, passing through the chaotic true thunder and distorting the space. The world of chaotic true thunder was swallowed into the storm of time and space. Meanwhile, the spear continued up with its supreme destructive force. It stabbed into the palm seal that covered the vast void and penetrated it directly, burying inside murderously. That boundless giant palm shook violently and many cracks appeared. Boom! Yi Futian's body passed through the space above the palm seal. He broke through directly and did not stop. After passing through the destructive palm seal, he went directly for the human ancestor with extreme speed. It was like he had arrived before the majestic and huge body of the human ancestor in an instant. Chaotic true thunder shot out of the human ancestor's eyes. It tore apart the void directly and blasted toward Yi Futian. But this time, Yi Futian was completely confident. He did not dodge at all. His spear broke through the air. It was unstoppable. He stabbed through the chaotic true thunder directly and went for that huge figure. The world-slaying chaotic true thunder covered Yi Futian's entire body. The destructive attack destroyed his physical body, but he streaked through it. Boom! Just then, Yi Futian felt that he saw an illusory figure. It was majestic and unparalleled. It was like the divine king that ruled the entire universe. Bang! The spear hit the huge skull and penetrated it, but at the same time, a burst of horrifyingly destructive divine power snaked into Yi Futian's mind. The silhouette of that divine king became clearer. It terrorized all beings in the world and wanted him to bow down before it. In that extremely short instant, the spear already shattered the divine human skull. Yi Futian's body passed through it, but he did not feel excited. Instead, he had a strong sense of fear. He looked back at the divine human's body and saw that the shattered skull was reforming. It was not affected at all, as if it was an undying body. A clone! That moment, Yi Futian's heart tremored violently. This was just an outer clone of the human ancestor, and not his true self. Yi Futian finally understood what his father had said to him before. The human ancestor was not the real human ancestor. Now he could vaguely sense that it was highly possible that the human ancestor that he was facing now was only a clone of the human ancestor. The human ancestor that had survived since the era of the heavenly path's collapse had been cultivating every moment of these countless years. He had even collected countless great emperor relics from when the heavenly path had collapsed and found the traces of the gods in this world. How could he not be powerful? Was the force that he had felt earlier the force brought on by the human ancestor's true consciousness? Then the human ancestor turned and looked toward him. Destructive light shot out of his eyes. Using a thought, Yi Futian's body disappeared from the spot and appeared before Dong Huang the Great. "Father, let's go," he said. Since the human ancestor was just a clone and had an undying body, it meant that this battle had no meaning anymore. They could not kill the enemy, and in that battle he had also made risky actions. This was an extremely unbalanced battle. The two transformed into two beams of light and shot into the distance, instantly vanishing from the spot. But a Tianxin used their mind, and the vast world was instantly frozen. The space was locked, and everything here seemed to fall into a still state. But Yi Futian was in his own divine domain. Divine power exploded, and he transformed into a spot of light, streaking through the space. The power of the sealed void could not stop his departure. The two instantly streaked into the distance. The eternal sword lord looked at the escaping figures and cut down with his sword remotely. The sword crossed the space to kill them. It crumbled the vast void. All the stars in its path shattered and collapsed, getting sliced apart directly. The sword path Milky Way dropped down, and it was like one could not escape this attack, no matter how they ran. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. But then the two beams of light that were Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great passed directly through the sword path Milky Way. They streaked forward, passing through, and then continued to escape until they disappeared. The two were figures at the top of the pyramid. Clearly, it was quite unlikely for them to be stopped by this one sword. The group of Tianxin did not pursue them. The gods realized that the vast majority of them might not be able to withstand Yi Futian's attack. They might even get killed instantly, so they definitely could not leave the group to chase after them. The human ancestor did not pursue them either. He stared at the escaping figures and realized that even this Tianxin army could not make the two stay completely. Yi Futian's abilities were not any weaker than Dong Huang the Great now. Similarly, he was not weaker than the human ancestor either. In addition, he was skilled in many things and very hard to deal with. Even if they pursued him, there would be no result. Yi Futian's speed was not any slower than them either. Earlier, they had been able to catch him. Yi Futian probably did it purposely to try and exchange blows with them. "Go," the human ancestor said. He led all the Tianxin to leave this place. They prepared to visit the divine prefecture's imperial palace and the western heaven spiritual mountain. Yi Futian and Dong Huang the Great traveled through the vast void. They did not know where they'd reached, but they stopped after knowing that the others did not chase after them. Father's speculation was correct. The human ancestor we faced may have just been a clone of the human ancestor. He ruled the world and managed the order of the human realm with a clone. The true body of the human ancestor might not have recovered his vitality completely, Yi Futian said to Dong Huang the Great. Dong Huang the Great understood that Yi Futian discovered some things in the previous exchange of blows. "It must be, Dong Huang the Great. Back then, your mother had died because of this. If the other returns, I'm afraid it will be a disaster. Thus, we still have to hurry up." "Yes." Yi Futian nodded, feeling a wave of stress. The human ancestor had the various gods returned to be used by him, Yi Futian continued to say. "If it is like how we predicted, then surely the gods fear the human ancestor greatly too. They can only be used by him willingly." Earlier, many of the great emperors did not attack, Dong Huang the Great replied. "Even if they did not attack, surely they have some concerns. The human ancestor wants to replace the heavenly path and take its path. The gods must be fearful of this day too. At that time, the human ancestor would be the supreme existence. Even a great emperor would not dare to go against him. If the human ancestor replaced the heavenly path, becoming an existence like the ancient heavenly path, the various gods would be the gods under his reign. No matter how strong they were, they could not go against the heavenly path like back then. Who could do it again? The battle from the past had already caused the heavenly path to collapse and the gods to fall. If a new heavenly path appeared, who would fight with it? Who dared to fight with it? What will we do next? Yi Futian wanted to hear Dong Huang the Great's suggestion. You will cultivate here, and I'll go out to take a look. I will notify you of news from the outside world. Dong Huang the Great replied. He wanted to give Yi Futian more time to cultivate. Giving up the 99 heavens of the heaven realm and taking everyone away was also to fight for more time. Time in Yi Futian's micro-heavenly path flowed at 81 times the speed. If he could get 1 year in the outside world, it would be 81 years. All the people in the micro-heavenly path would be able to transform. Yes, Yi Futian nodded. He was worried about the situation outside too. Now, the human ancestor led the strong figures of the 3 realms to invade. The beings would all suffer greatly, even though reached a consensus for the cultivators of the heaven realm, divine prefecture and western heaven world to try not to participate in the battle directly. They still could not avoid the killing and fighting. This was an invasion. The invaders would not be kind. It would be accompanied by fresh blood and white bones. But even so, he was the only one who could change the situation of this battle, and he had to hurry and cultivate to improve himself right now. Let us separate here, Dong Huang the Great said. Father, be careful, Yi Futian said a bit seriously. This time, the enemies that they faced were too strong. Otherwise, with Dong Huang the Great's abilities, he did not need Yi Futian's worry at all. This time was different. The gods of ancient times were all their enemies. Don't worry, I will be careful and avoid battles. You cultivated peace, Dong Huang the Great said. This time I have no choice but to abandon the Heaven Palace and Dong Huang Imperial Palace. It is a humiliation. All of this is waiting for you to take back. I will leave now. With that, he turned and walked forward, leaving with extreme decisiveness. He left Yi Futian alone in the vast void. Of course, all the cultivators of the 99 heavens were in his micro-heavenly path world. He did not need to cultivate himself. He also had to help them become stronger. Yi Futian's body flashed, going toward a specific direction. A moment later, he saw a barren star. With a thought, Yi Futian's body appeared on that barren star. Then he went directly to a barren mountain on that barren star and sat down. He closed his eyes to cultivate, starting his seclusion. 1 day in the outside world was 81 days in his micro-world. He had to grasp the advantage of time. 3 months later, on the barren star, Yi Futian sat cross-legged while divine light flowed, enveloping the entire star. He was like an ancient god, sitting there alone as he cultivated in seclusion. Right now, time was flowing at 81 times the speed in Yi Futian's micro-heavenly path world. 3 months was essentially 20 years. 20 years was enough for many people to transform. Furthermore, Yi Futian controlled the heavenly law. He could create strong cultivators directly, helping the people inside to speed up their cultivation. The cultivators in Yi Futian's micro-heavenly path world now were the first batch of cultivators. In a way, they were the direct heirs, other than some specific figures. Now, the micro-heavenly path world had been split into 6 camps. They were the 6 legions of the micro-heavenly path world. These 6 legions were the New Heaven Court, the original forces of the Heaven Realm. It was led by Lady Qin and Lady Shu and the people who had joined the Heavenly Imperial Palace. The 2 great emperors Qin and Shu and the top figures of the original Heavenly Palace marshaled this legion. The Revelation Legion, led by Dong Huang Diwen, was the force of the original Divine Prefecture. Four Corners Legion, led by the force of Four Corners Village and cultivators who had joined the Heaven Realm. They were trained by Fong Siyuan's 4-person group and transformed into a complete entity. It was a relatively new legion. Arhot Legion was a Buddhist legion led by the various Buddhas. There were not many people in this legion, but there were all strong cultivators of the elite level, high monks of the Buddhist clan. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Ziwei Legion consisted of the old members of the Ziwei Imperial Palace. Heavenly Mandate Legion was an old force led by the Heavenly Mandate Academy. The Ziwei Legion and Heavenly Mandate Legion had split up the original Ziwei Imperial Palace. Back in the day, the Ziwei Imperial Palace had established various palaces, thus creating Ziwei and Heavenly Mandate. But after reorganizing this force, now the West Imperial Palace was put into the Ziwei Legion, while the Lost Clan was put into the Heavenly Mandate Legion. The 6 great legions were then split into smaller legions and controlled by different people. This kind of reorganization was also in response to the recent changes in the world. It was a war between the 6 realms, and there were many cultivators in the micro-heavenly path world now. They had all come from different forces and clans. If they were not reorganized, they would be like scattered sand. Thus, they had to be newly organized to face the war. A figure stood in the starry sky. It was Tuesday. The 6 legions cultivated in different locations. They all had their territory. He felt like he saw the 8 legions under the former heavenly path. When Futian ruled the world, these forces would be his 8 legions in the future. The devil world would probably come under him too. This was the situation that you 2 hoped to see one day. However, everything was still unknown right now. He did not know if he could see the day arrive. In another direction, Futian saw that everyone was cultivating orderly and his consciousness left this place. Futian took out a sorcery item in the outside world and transmitted his consciousness into it. "Father," he said, "how is the outside world now?" He had cultivated for 20 years, but it had only been 3 months in the outside world. However, even though it had only been 3 months, dramatic changes could have occurred. The war has spread everywhere in the 6 realms. Among them, the Heaven Realm's resistance was the weakest. The Divine Prefecture's territory is extremely vast, and there are many cultivators. People everywhere are resisting. The Western Heaven Buddhist resistance is the most intense. The Buddhist clan is a pure land. After being invaded by the Dark World, the Buddhists believed their pure land had been tainted, so they started a mighty realm war. They pushed back against the Dark World, and the battle was incredibly intense. Donghuang the Great answered. In addition, the human realm seems to be letting this happen purposely. They did not send any support, causing the cultivators of the Dark World to suffer great losses. The Heaven Realm had fallen for a long while, and they did not have much sense of belonging. Their forces were also relatively weak. Naturally, they would not start large-scale resistance. This was also Futian's wish. There was no need to make meaningless sacrifices. The human ancestor's goal is to unify the world. Why would he care about the cultivators of the Dark World? Since the Dark Court decided to participate, then they should pay the cost, Futian said. Anything with the Devil World. No, Donghuang the Great replied. Nowadays, the Devil World has become the only pure land. They're cultivating in peace. I'm afraid the Devil World can't stay unaffected either. The human realm wants to conquer the 7 realms. After taking down the 6 realms, they will probably take over the original realm and then invade the Devil World, Futian said. However, Yusheng also needed time to cultivate now. He had sent over a sorcery item that could change the flow of time. This way, he could also help Yusheng gain more time to cultivate and improve himself. Thus, he was quite happy to see the current situation. He would wait for Yusheng to become stronger. The Divine Prefecture must have been damaged greatly, right? Futian asked. Donghuang the Great was quiet for a bit. Then he said, "You just focus on cultivating. I'm afraid the day that the human ancestor returns is not far away." Futian understood what he meant. The Divine Prefecture must have been significantly damaged. This was an invasive war. Even if they avoided battle, they would still be affected by it. Plus, the initiative was completely in the hands of the other side. However, Donghuang the Great did not want Futian to get involved. They were both clear that Yi Futian's cultivation concerned the entire world. If no one could stop the human ancestor when he returned, then the world would be under the rule of the human realm. I understand, Yi Futian answered. He did not speak further. He looked up at the empty starry sky and then stood up. With a thought, his body vanished from the spot. Even though his father Donghuang the Great had told him to cultivate in peace, he still wanted to see the situation in the outside world. His father did not tell him everything, fearing he would get worried about the present situation. In the divine prefecture, all of the 18 domains were covered by the fires of war. Strong cultivators of the empty divine realm and human realm had invaded everywhere. There had not been much resistance in the war of the heaven realm. After the human realm figures invaded it, they quickly conquered everywhere in the heaven realm. Now they were in the ending stages. Thus, after battles died down in the heaven realm, most of the vital figures of the human realm turned to the divine prefecture. They began to attack the 18 domains of the divine prefecture. The divine prefecture had countless cultivation continents. Each of the 18 domains were extremely large. Thus, the human realm and empty divine realm targeted the main continents of the 18 domains. After they took over the core continent, they could fan out to control the entire territory. The Taishang domain had been one of the strongest of the 18 domains. Now it was also war-ridden. Many battles had erupted on it. Not long ago, there had been an extremely bloody event in the Zixiao domain of the divine prefecture. After that event, the 18 domains of the divine prefecture had started extremely big resistances. People from all the domains stood up and started hunting down the invaders. In the process of the human realm and empty divine realms invasion, cultivators of many forces started looting madly. They encountered intense resistance from cultivators during the looting and started slaughtering indiscriminately. This caused an entire city to be filled with rivers of blood. This event had shaken the 18 domains of the divine prefecture and completely infuriated the independent cultivators of the divine prefecture. Yi Futian's figure descended upon a continent in the Taiyu domain. Using his consciousness, countless images appeared in his mind instantly. His divine consciousness covered the entire vast continent. He saw many battlefields. Battle had erupted everywhere and fires burned. According to the rules established by convention, great emperors were not allowed to be involved in the battles. To avoid affecting the innocent people of the divine prefecture, Yi Futian naturally would not directly interfere with this battle. However, this did not mean that he could use any secret methods. Yi Futian could sense that there were many demon beasts with strong cultivations. He used one thought, and a strong demonic cultivator appeared before him. This was the golden-winged giant pung bird. His entire body was golden, but he was in human form. His features were extremely sharp. He was a divine bird, the golden-winged giant pung bird from the empty divine realm. Whoosh! There was a gale of wind. The golden-winged giant pung bird transformed into a bolt of lightning, flashing toward Yi Futian. He extended his hand. It changed into extremely sharp claws as he clapped down on Yi Futian. This was the other actively attacking him. Yi Futian looked at him with his dark eyes. Instantly, that figure felt a horrible divine consciousness penetrate his mind directly. The next moment, his body came to an abrupt stop. He looked at Yi Futian and bowed in greeting. Master. Yi Futian extracted his memories directly and quickly learned about some things. His brows furrowed slightly, and murderous intent flashed past his eyes. Go, he uttered. Instantly, that figure shot into the clouds and transformed back into its original form. He streaked through the sky and left this place to collect information from the divine prefecture for Yi Futian. / Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Yi Futian took a step and went before another demon beast. After doing this many times, he controlled quite a few demon beasts and sent them towards the main continents of the divine prefecture. After doing this, Yi Futian's figure appeared at one of the main peaks of the continent. He had received a lot of information in his mind. As expected, Father did not tell me this, Yi Futian thought inside. Dong Huang the Great had hidden a lot of information in the conversation with him earlier. The divine prefecture situation was much worse than he had imagined. Naturally, he understood his father's actions. The divine prefecture was the territory that his father ruled. How would he be willing to see today's situation? But for the future, he had to hope that Yi Futian could focus entirely on cultivating, and thus did not tell him too much. The present divine prefecture had the fire of war burning in all 18 domains. Countless continents were affected. Even if they purposely tried to avoid conflict, they could not stay untouched, especially in the massacre that had happened recently in Zixiao domain. The forces of the human realm had issued a massacre order. Countless people who had not participated in the war had been massacred. Blood flowed through the entire city like a river. Numerous people had been killed, and it had been gruesome. Even though he knew this was unavoidable in an invasive war, the human realm called themselves justice, but were still so cruel and bloody when conquering others. This still made him extremely furious. His eyes contained murderous intent. The killing that had occurred in Zixiao domain started igniting the divine prefecture. Strong figures in all the divine prefecture domains were furious after hearing the news, and worried they would have the same fate. The top figures stood up to organize the cultivators of the divine prefecture and started a resistance, hunting down the invaders. This was still the home turf of the divine prefecture. If one only looked at the numbers, the divine prefecture cultivators could drown the invaders. However, the invaders all had very strong cultivations. Otherwise, they would not have come to invade another realm. The fire of war expanded through the 18 domains and could possibly ignite on all fronts. Not too long after, Yi Futian received news that a huge battle was occurring in the central city of the Taishang domain. Taishang City was where the domain chief's manor of the Taishang domain had been. It had a pretty important status in the entire divine prefecture. The cultivators of the Taishang domain were quite strong as a whole, and Taishang City was even more so. The human realm and empty divine realm had been attacked many times during their invasion. After the invaders had killed their way to Taishang City, they were often hunted and killed, causing the invading forces to suffer significant losses. This attracted the attention of the upper level, who reported it to even higher levels. Thus, on this day, the human realm and empty divine realm both transferred strong forces at the same time to overwhelm Taishang City. They prepared to take it down in one go to avoid future problems. That day, some strong legions arrived in the sky above Taishang City. Among them, the strongest force was, without a doubt, the orthodox unity of the human realm. This force was the orthodox force of the human realm and had a close relationship with the human divine palace. In fact, it could be said that they followed orders directly from the human divine palace. The sect leader of the orthodox unity was an important figure in the human realm too. A few years ago, he began to have the reputation of being one of the strongest figures under the great emperor plane. Now he had reached the emperor plane and followed the human ancestor. The orthodox unity was powerful because of the tight-knit relationship with human divine palace. They had branches everywhere, and their forces were spread throughout the human realm. They were the number one cultivation force in the human realm, other than the human divine palace. There was no other one. One could imagine how strong they were. Now, the sect leader of the orthodox unity followed the human ancestor, while the vice sect leaders managed the sect. They were all in the near deity level and had very frightening cultivations. Right now, they stood in the air, leading the Orthodox Unity Legion. They were ready to invade the city of the Taishang domain. The vice sect leaders of the Orthodox Unity all had an air of justice about them. Divine light flowed on their bodies, and they had extraordinary auras. Their gazes scanned the city below. Other than the Orthodox unity, they also led many forces from the Taishang domain to attack together. They prepared to take down the city in one fell swoop and then take down the Taishang domain. There was a similarly mighty legion in the Taishang city. This was a voluntary resistance army formed by the cultivators of the divine prefecture, Taishang city. In addition, there were many scattered camps inside the entire city. They were all resistors. Right now, they all looked up at the army that had come to conquer them and felt very formidable pressure. Even so, they were still full of the wish to fight. The human realm's invasion had upended the impression of the human ancestor that the people of the divine prefecture had before. These self-proclaimed cultivators of justice were all shams. Dong Huang the Great might have seen through the others' disguise long ago and thus rejected Di Hao's marriage proposal so decisively back then. They finally understood why the human ancestor had told Di how to propose to Dong Huang Diyuan, and why the great emperor had become furious and humiliated Di Hao. The two had an intense rivalry. It seems that they don't plan on giving up. They prepare to continue resisting. A cultivator of the orthodox unity in the sky said after seeing the scene in Taishang City. A group of idiots. Mayflies trying to sway a tree, someone on the side mocked. He announced, Dong Huang has already abandoned you all, and you still dare to fight back. You're looking for death. The cultivators of Taishang City were not swayed at all by these words. Had Dong Huang the Great abandoned them? Dong Huang the Great told them to save themselves, try their best not to get into the war, and wait for the future. They understood how helpless this was. The great emperor probably did not think that the human realm cultivators who are self-proclaimed people of justice will be so bloodthirsty. Someone said coldly. The great emperor will not forgive the invaders. Really, the orthodox unity cultivator in the sky sneered. Since you're so stubborn, then you can only be baptized in blood. The vice sect leader of the orthodox unity looked down from the sky as if he was looking at a group of ants. The strong figures of the orthodox unity and human realm, listen, he announced. The cultivators of Taishang City are killing the masters of justice. In that case, we must bathe Taishang City in blood and kill all with no mercy. The strong figures of the orthodox unity had icy gazes while the murderous intent burned. That one massacre had not been enough. Instead, it united the people of the divine prefecture in resistance. Then they would do another massacre to repress them and clean everyone out. They would kill until the people of the divine prefecture gave up on resisting. 1. As soon as he spoke, a frightening aura pressed down, shrouding Taishang City. The mighty masses of strong cultivators flooded down to start the bloodshed in the city, turning the wrong into right. The strong figures of the divine prefecture had icy gazes. 1. They carry fatal weapons and murder grows in their hearts. The human realm and empty divine realm are invading. Even if they had consciences before, this kind of environment will destroy your humanity, an elder stated loudly. Cultivators of the divine prefecture, toss away your fantasies. Kill to stop killing. Those from another sect will have different hearts. If I surrender and die with injustice, then I'd rather die on the battlefield. Even if I die, I'll have no regrets. The voices rose in waves. They all had the feeling of tragic heroes and stimulated the resistance spirit of the cultivators in Taishang City. All the cultivators released their powers, and their bodies shot into the air, ready to face the Orthodox Unity's attack. Beams of destructive attacks have already descended from the dome of the sky. The cultivators of Taishang City also attacked. Instantly, there was a frighteningly destructive storm in the sky above the city. Kill. / please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. The yell of kill shook the sky on the battlefield. Led by the Orthodox Unity, the strong figures charged into the city like a ferocious tiger coming down the mountain. The alliance of independent cultivators of the divine prefecture had difficulty resisting quickly. In a short time, many people died. This kind of battle was extremely destructive. At that time, Countless legions suddenly appeared in different directions of the sky above Taishang City. Pressure weighed down. They all looked down at the same time. The aura of each legion was frightening. They were all cultivators with very high cultivations. The leaders were all at the near deity level, and there were quite a few of them. Who are you? The strong figures of the Orthodox unity overlooked the battlefield. When they saw the army that had suddenly appeared in the sky, they froze. Their eyes narrowed slightly as they stared at these strong figures. As soon as they spoke, a group of strong figures charged directly at them. Countless beams of sword light appeared in the sky. Like a sword matrix, they tore apart the void and covered the area that they were in. The Imperial Palace Legion. They quickly realized who the newcomers were, and they paled. Even though the Orthodox unity was strong, they were not the force directly under the divine human palace. The top legion of the Seven Realms was directly under the Imperial Palace. These cultivators that had arrived were the legion directly under the Donghuang Imperial Palace and Heaven Imperial Palace, who had escaped earlier. Now, they had killed their way here. Boom! A strong aura was released. The air of justice bloomed from their bodies as they cut down with mighty sword chi, but they were flooded instantly. Destructive sword intent directly ripped apart the void, disappearing in a flash. In that instant, the strong cultivators of the Orthodox unity transformed instantly into nothingness. They were destroyed in this world, causing the strong figures of the human realm and empty divine realm below them to panic. They did not think they would get besieged by the Imperial Palace Legion here. Retreat! The strong figures of the Orthodox unity were decisive and ordered to retreat. However, the entire Taishang city was covered by all the legions. Every direction was blocked off. Kill with no mercy. A voice rang through the air above Taishang city. The strong figures had said this of the Orthodox unity before too. Die! Instantly, the murderous yells from the entire Taishang city shook the sky. The strong figures from the legion that had arrived and Taishang city sealed the entire city and started killing. The people of the Orthodox unity, human realm, and empty divine realm did not want to fight anymore. They only wanted to kill enough to escape while also calling for reinforcement. But it was utterly useless. This was a one-sided massacre. The people of the Orthodox unity wanted to wipe out Taishang city, but instead they suffered a tragic massacre. Not too long after, the number of cultivators on the battlefield had been reduced greatly. Some of the Orthodox unity wanted to surrender, but the people of Taishang city did not accept it. Faced with these murders, they only had murderous thoughts. Gradually, the battle entered the finishing stage. The strong figures of all the legions went toward the upper sky, starting to take their leave. Yi Futian and the others appeared there and enveloped the strong legions. Then they all vanished. Heavenly Emperor, take us with two! The strong figures of Taishang city who had participated in the battle said at this time. We're willing to go with the Heavenly Emperor, more strong figures said. They were cultivators of the divine prefecture. The relationship between Donghuang the Great and Yi Futian was public knowledge now. It was no longer a secret. There was no difference between following Yi Futian and Donghuang the Great. Okay, those who are willing to fight, come with me, Yi Futian said. Instantly, most of the people who had fought earlier in Taishang city shot into the sky, joining Yi Futian. They were also collected into Yi Futian's micro-heavenly path world. These people could join Donghuang Diyuan's Revelation Legion and be governed by Donghuang Diyuan. They would still be part of the divine prefecture's force in the future. When Yi Futian was leaving, he ran into Donghuang the Great, who had hurried over. He had come to Taishang city after learning about the battle here. You came after all, Donghuang the Great said, sighing inwardly. He was conflicted inside too. He hoped Yi Futian could focus on cultivating, but the situation in the divine prefecture now was indeed tragic. Yes, Father, Come cultivate in my micro-world, Yi Futian said. I'll take care of the matters in the outside world. Okay. Dong Huang the Great nodded. He prepared to let go and hand everything over to Yi Futian. He also entered Yi Futian's micro-heavenly path world to cultivate. This way he could fight for more time. Yi Futian left this place. The people of Taishang City looked at his receding silhouette, and it was like seeing the light in despair. The Heavenly Emperor and Dong Huang the Great would win the War of the Seven Realms. News about the Battle of Taishang City started spreading. The human ancestor and other strong figures learned of it immediately, but by the time they hurried over, Yi Futian and the others had already left. Yi Futian was able to lead a moving army. This was indeed very troublesome. No, the human ancestor said, as if sensing something. Return to the human realm. As soon as he spoke, their bodies transformed into beams of light. They vanished from their spot and hurried toward the human realm as if they had sensed something was amiss. The sect leader of the Orthodox unity was by the human ancestor's side. He seemed to understand what the human ancestor meant, and his expression turned uncomfortable. Did the human ancestor think that Yi Futian would lead his army to attack the human realm? Yi Futian did not have much time. If he attacked the human realm, where would he choose to be the target? The sect leader of the Orthodox unity's face paled instantly. A massacre had occurred in the divine prefecture, so if Yi Futian wanted to intimidate the forces of the human realm, what would be the best solution? Exterminate the Orthodox unity. The Orthodox unity was the #1 clan of the human realm below the divine human palace. Their forces were spread throughout the human realm. Before the God's Ruins continent had appeared in the era of the 6 emperors, the Orthodox unity already had many near-deity figures. There were also descendants of ancient gods and had a great heritage, so it was extremely strong. The Orthodox unity had many branches on all the continents of the human realm, while the headquarters of the Orthodox unity ruled the main city, Orthodox Unity City. It was directly named by the Orthodox unity, so one could imagine how big the Orthodox unity's influence was. Within the Orthodox Unity City were practically all from the Orthodox unity. They controlled all the resources in this city. During this war, the Orthodox unity had sent out a portion of cultivators to fight, but more people remained within the clan. However, the people who left mostly had high cultivation levels. Now the entire city was in a state of chaos. The inner circle of the Orthodox unity was especially panicked. Not long ago, they received news that the Orthodox unity figures who went to invade the divine prefecture had practically been wiped out and killed. It was not just that the Orthodox unity had been greatly hurt. Instead, the upper-level figures had practically all been killed. One could imagine what kind of shock the Orthodox unity was in now. At this moment, the entire Orthodox unity was in a mess. Strong figures kept coming to and fro under the mighty clan doors. Many cultivators in the city were heading toward the Orthodox unity too. They wanted to know if the news was accurate. This was like a bolt in the blue for the Orthodox Unity City with great implications. They naturally wanted to know the definite answer. Even if they knew that it might be true, they still did not want to accept it. Please keep reading on Wuxia World. EU. Silence. Just then, a voice came from within the doors of the Orthodox Unity and spread throughout the inside and outside of the clan. At the same time, a powerful burst of the Emperor's might radiated out, shaking the hearts of countless cultivators. Great Emperor. Another great emperor has been born in the Orthodox unity. At that moment, countless strong cultivators were shocked. They seemingly forgot about the panic from earlier. Was there a second great emperor in the Orthodox unity now, other than the leader? If both emperors were in the Orthodox unity, they were still the top clan below the human divine palace. Who could shake them? Go do your own thing, the voice said again. When the emperor's might emanated, it seemed to calm people down. The panicking hearts of all the strong cultivators gradually calmed down. Then they prepared to leave and mind their own business. Just then, a terrifying might suddenly came from the dome of the sky. The cultivators of the Orthodox unity looked up to the sky. The sun was a bit blinding, and many people covered their eyes with their hands, but an even more brilliant divine light shone down. Then they saw a mighty heavenly army descend from the sky. At that moment, their hearts twitched fiercely. This was within the Orthodox unity. A strong figure in a dark Taoist robe appeared in the sky. His eyes were like a bolt of lightning penetrating the void as he gazed toward the army in the sky. Who has come? Emperor's might radiated from his body and enveloped the vast land. The aggressive emperor's might calmed the cultivators down quite a bit, especially the strong figures of the Orthodox unity. Their clan had a great emperor. As soon as he spoke, a white-haired figure appeared. When the great emperor of the Orthodox unity saw the other, his expression changed drastically. Futian used a thought to cover the vast space with the divine power of the great path. Time and space seemed to freeze. An extremely brilliant spear appeared above the great emperor's head. This spear shot down directly, passing through the void. Sensing the might of the spear, the Orthodox unity, great emperor's expression dropped, but he felt that time had stopped moving. His divine power wanted to break free, but he had just entered the great emperor plane. How could he fight against Futian? Their divine power was not at the same level at all. The spear shot down and directly penetrated the great emperor's body with a squelch. With a loud boom, it continued down and smashed a grand pavilion of the Orthodox unity, pulverizing it. The brilliant spear was nailed into the ground, nailing the great emperor's body there in death. The shocking scene before their eyes made all the strong figures inside and outside of the Orthodox unity to freeze. They had not processed it all yet. Right before their eyes, they had seen a great emperor that had just been created in the Orthodox unity to be nailed to death in the Orthodox unity. After that, the strong figures of the Orthodox unity felt extreme pain in their hearts. They recognized the white-haired youth. It's Futian. The heavenly emperor, Futian, killed 7 great emperors with one spear and was left unscathed from a battle with the human ancestor and eternal sword lord. He had led his great army to attack the Orthodox unity. Had the strong figures who had wiped out the Orthodox unity in the divine prefecture been Futian's army too? Everyone looked up at the mighty army in the sky whose might was weighing down on the Orthodox unity. Futian's eyes were icy but burned with murderous intent. He waved his hand and ordered, "Kill." Since the human realm's forces had committed massacres in the divine prefecture and heaven realm, then they would kill to stop the killing. He would like to see if the other invasive forces of the human realm still dared to commit bloodshed after he wiped out the Orthodox unity. After Futian spoke, the army attacked, charging towards the Orthodox unity. The strong figures of the Orthodox unity looked at the great emperor nailed to the ground with the spear. Even his divine soul and consciousness had been wiped out. They felt a wave of despair, as if even the wind blowing onto their bodies was frigid. Outside the Orthodox unity's doors, the cultivators of the city watched this scene from afar. Even though the Orthodox unity was the #1 clan of the human realm, they still could not hold up before the army of an imperial palace. The horrifying army destroyed the Orthodox unity with unstoppable force. The mighty clan was being destroyed without stop. Strong figures kept dying in the sky, and their bodies fell down. The hot sun blazed, but the cultivators of the Orthodox unity city all felt the bone-stabbing coldness. When a breeze blew by, they felt iciness stab into their souls. This battle did not actually last very long, but the inside of the Orthodox unity was covered by corpses. Fresh blood dyed the Orthodox unity red. Meanwhile, the crushed pavilion at the peak of the Orthodox unity was where the scene of the great emperor nailed by the spear was. It was shocking. The #1 clan of the human realm had gotten wiped out. In the distance, extremely strong and domineering emperors might seem to descend. The human ancestor's face appeared in the sky, blocking the sun and covering the entire world. Divine might descended. The human ancestor stared at Yi Futian and said, "Yi Futian, you're too presumptuous." Yi Futian looked up and scanned that face. He collected the grand army into his micro-world and gathered divine power around his body into an extremely horrifying spear. He raised a hand and slapped it forward. Instantly, the long spear shot directly into the sky, stabbing toward that huge face. Boom! The long spear attacked the heavens, and a horrifying crack appeared. It swallowed up the sky, even twisting the face. One portion of the sky had cracked. Yi Futian looked up and scanned the sky, saying, "If the human realm's forces dare to commit atrocities in the divine prefecture again, they will end up like the Orthodox unity." With that, his body vanished directly. After Yi Futian left, dozens of great emperors appeared. They did not dare to come forward earlier and just watched it all happen. Clearly, they could not offend Yi Futian. A desolate feeling rose in the hearts of the cultivators of the Orthodox unity. It seemed that the human realm could not stay safe from this tribulation either.